Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Hunter x Hunter, in which Konoha's beloved Jinchuriki finds herself in an odd new world with only Kurama by her side. He insists Biju bombs are the only way to fix this issue. Welcome aboard! Chapter 10, Saw-Scaled Viper Eye. Gon didn't wake up for the rest of the day, and far into the next one, but when he did, he was hecka excited about his license. Less so when he realized that Killua wasn't with them. I promised Killua we'd pick him up when you were feeling better, Miwa explained to Gon, sitting by his bedside next to Kurapika and Leorio. But, now I realize maybe you wouldn't want to. Of course, I do. He's our friend, Gon said cheerfully. Can you teleport us to him? Technically yes, but I shouldn't, Miwa said with a grimace. I have no way of judging distance until after the teleportation unless I know the area. I have no clue how far away Killua has become. If I were to just go ahead and teleport, I might expend all of my energy, and accidentally unleash some raw, rage-inducing QB chakra that will inevitably result in the massacre of those nearby. Definitely including Killua and his family. That just sounds like a good time. Not helping. Did he mention where he was going exactly? Kurapika asked in a kind voice. The blonde boy seemed unnaturally kind and soft-spoken. It kind of unnerved Miwa, since it was such a contradiction to what she sensed in his energy core. On the outside he was nice, but on the inside all she could hear was the rattling of rusty chains and the smell of rotten flesh. She honestly hadn't been able to decide if he was a budding psychopath or just seriously disturbed. Please let it be psychopath. Then please let him get strong and try to fight us. Why can't you learn to enjoy the simple things in life? Why can't you let me Biju bomb a few cities? Push humanity into glorious war and a fight for survival. Turn the world into post-apocalypse and slaughter the weak. So sadistic. Back home to get his dad's permission to go on adventures with us, Miwa told Kurapika, ignoring the pouting. I am not pouting, QB. His last name was Zoldyck, right? Kurapika said, pulling his messenger bag around. He fished around in it for a moment before he found what he was looking for and presented the group with a laptop. How the hell did that not get destroyed? Miwa wondered out loud, but Kurapika only smiled mysteriously as he booted it up. It took him several minutes, but he was able to figure out where Killua lived. He turned the laptop around to show everyone a picture of a mountain that looked like it ought to be haunted by ghosts. Says here the Zoldyck family live on this mountain. Then let's go there, Miwa. Gon declared. Okie dokie. Where are you guys going to head off to? Gon asked his other friends. Get my degree in medicine to become a doctor, Leorio proudly declared. I have some research to do, Kurapika responded vaguely. Why do I feel like by research he means murdering? Miwa questioned. Is he really going to turn into a serial killer? Not that I'm judging him or anything, since I'm technically a serial killer, too. Sage damn, I hope so. Gon's gaze was downcast for a moment before he brightened back up. Okay. Then let's make a promise to meet up again someday. Of course, they agreed. Why not, here? Leorio said, tapping on something on the screen of the laptop. Since Miwa couldn't read anything, she really had no way of knowing what the heck he was pointing out. Sounds good. The trip to the Kokoro Mountain, apparently it was a dormant volcano, which had Kurama hoping for it to explode while they were there, was short and easy. Miwa had a marker semi-near it, and she and Gon made the rest of the journey on foot. There was a town nearby, and a tour that was offering free rides to the mountain. Gon thought it'd be fun to go on a tour, so the tour was what they went on. It was not fun. It was stuffy, led by an overly cheerful guide lady, and slow as heck. Miwa could have run faster on her hands than that stupid bus. At least Gon seemed to be enjoying himself, oohing and awing at some of the random little facts the tour guide spewed out. When they finally reached the base of the volcano, the tour guide let them out to stretch their legs and to take a picture of the Zoldyck family gate. The gate in question was big. Bigger than any gate had a right to be. It wasn't as big as Kurama, but it was about the size of one of his arms. No gate should have been that big, and it looked so over the top with its dramatic appearance. Anyone who saw it would immediately think, yeah, that's a cliché gate of an assassin's family. SBO Wookie. So, kick the gates open or hop over? Miwa thought, looking the dark gates up and down. I feel like there should be lightning flashing in the background. Or at least some ominous music, Kurama agreed. There was a pause, then Kurama adjusted their mindscape so the two could listen to a haunting orchestra from one of Miwa's old memories. Yep, that's better. Miwa and Kurama were interrupted from their conversation by an outburst of violence. Two of the people who had attended the tour had broken off from the group and straight up attacked the security guard for Killua's home. One of them was holding up the security guard above the ground. "Open the door, old man," snarled one of them, a fat blonde with a sweaty stench. Miwa honestly could not believe the audacity of those two. Two men with chakra so pathetically weak she'd consider them beneath wild animals trying to attack someone. Trying to attack someone who worked for Killua. Who was Miwa's friend. In front of Miwa. "Oi," Miwa snarled, stalking toward the two men. "Drop him and I won't snap your necks." The two men sneered at Miwa, and the larger one threw the elderly security guard to the ground. "Ha? What did you say, little bitch?" With a burst of chakra, Miwa rapidly busted all of their kneecaps, twisting their legs around in a horrific fashion. She did this within seconds before returning to her original position a few feet away from them. As far as anyone else could see, the two men just had their legs mangled in the blink of an eye. They were howling and screaming in pain, blood gushing out from their wounds as their splintered leg bones poked out from the skin. "Miwa," Gon exclaimed. "That wasn't very nice." "They called me a bitch," Miwa defended herself, gesturing toward the two men who were already going into shock from the pain. "And they were attacking someone who works for Killua. How else was I supposed to react?" "You should have talked to them first," Gon said, wagging his finger in a manner reminiscent of a scolding. "They might have had a very good reason for doing what they did." Miwa sighed, realizing her rebuttal of, "I don't care" probably wouldn't work on Gon. As Gon and Miwa were having their nonchalant conversation, the rest of the tour group screamed, ran back to the bus, and promptly hightailed it out of there. Their whimpers and screams were starting to get a little irritated, so Miwa went ahead and crushed their heads under her boot. Gon, meanwhile, was helping the elderly man back up and asking him if he was okay. "Thank you both for your help," the guard said, offering a polite bow to Miwa. "What brings you two here?" "We're Killua's friends," Gon chirped, then nudged Miwa's arm. "Well, I'm his friend and Miwa is his fiancée." This caused the guard to gape at Miwa for a moment. "What, truly? We're here to see Killua," Miwa said, glaring at the cheeky Gon who stuck out his tongue in response. They both knew telling people that would only result in a lot of misunderstandings, especially since Miwa did not want to explain their inside joke to a stranger. "He said he had to talk to his dad before he could go adventuring with us." "Ah, I see," the guard said, nodding at this. "That's wonderful, I'm glad to see the young master has made friends." Miwa gestured toward the overly sized gates. "Do we just go through there, then?" "Normally, yes." Miwa turned on her heel and approached the door. She was surprised when she moved to push the doors open using her normal strength. It wouldn't budge. "Oh, yeah?" Miwa pushed her chakra out and Kurama added his own to enhance her physical strength, and promptly shoved all 7 doors wide open. Kurama's chakra lingered in and around Miwa. She had ended up using a tail's worth, which was surprising, before rapidly dissipating. "Oof, that was heavier than I expected. That weighed as much as that sage-damned octopus. Who the hell is this door for?" I don't believe it," the guard exclaimed, eyes bright with awe. "The gate's official name is the Testing Gates. Anyone who cannot open this gate is unworthy to enter the Zoldyck estate. You won't need to worry about the guard, Mike, as he has orders to not attack anyone who goes through this gate. The first 2 doors weigh 2 tons each, there are 7 in each and the tonnage doubles with each set of doors. Yet you just opened all of them. Who the hell needs a door that heavy?" Miwa questioned, aghast by that odd logic. "That's just a waste of resources. The walls surrounding it aren't even as tall as the door. Humans are idiots." "Certainly, some of them. Wow, Miwa, you're really strong. You know, for a second there it looked like you grew a tail," Gon jovially commented, all smiles and sunshine. "Thanks for talking with us, Mr. Security Man. Come on, Miwa." Gon and Miwa hopped through the gates that closed shut behind them. On the other side of the door, there was a massive canine with too many odd proportions for Miwa to say for certain if it was more dog-like or wolf-like. It stood tall, about the size of Kurama's entire paw, and was covered in dark purple fur. It stared intently at Miwa and Gon, its black eyes assessing them with a cold hunger. That must be Mike, Miwa observed the massive dog. Hey, kiddo. I'm packin', the smaller pug greeted her, giving her a toothy grin and a small tail wag. Wanna touch my paw? Miwa felt the memory echo inside of her heart. Warmth, love, and acceptance came alongside of it. The smell of the pack in her tiny apartment, all clamoring for her attention. Their warm, fur-covered bodies, pressing against her own on nights dark and terrible. The sound of their reassured breathing as they slept around her. The memories of the pack, of her pack, were still in bits and pieces, but enough was given back to Miwa to know she loved them and they loved her. She glanced down at her hand, wondering if she spilled her blood to summon them, would they come to her again? Contracts are soul-bound, but they are in another world. If you summon them, it will take a significant amount of chakra. Enough that all of your chakra will be drained, and over half of mine, I would imagine. Worst case, it might even drain all of our combined chakra, whatever nature chakra we could scrounge up to, and still not be enough. We could trap them in between dimensions trying to summon them. Definitely don't want that. Miwa glanced back over at the guard dog, admiring how soft its fur looked. Can I pet you? She politely asked. It doesn't look very friendly, Gon told Miwa, peering at the canine. I think it wants to eat us. Miwa only shrugged in response, taking a step closer to the overgrown pup. Do you think it wants to eat us? Most definitely. It's leaking retrained bloodlust. If you want to pet it, you'll have to tame it. That's a shame, Miwa thought, turning away from Mike. Taming it would mean using Kurama's chakra to scare it into submission before working with it. She didn't want to do that to Killua's pet puppy. Maybe Killua would let her pet him later. So soft and fluffy. It warmed her heart to see cute fluffy animals. It put a smile on her face and a skip in her step. With a cheerful hum, she and Gon began to make their way up the mountain to visit their friend, Kikyo. Meanwhile, Kikyo was an unhinged woman. A brilliant, cunning woman, but an insane one at that. Growing up in Meteor City resulted in a lot of horrors being forced upon her. Her childhood was filled with cruel acts and desperate attempts at survival. She learned, painfully so, her desires were unimportant. Her body was a tool. Her mind a prison. Even as she wallowed in the filth of that hell on earth, she managed to climb to impressive heights. She even garnered enough attention that she caught the eye of one Silva Zoldyck. He showed her a cold, twisted kind of love, but it was a love that Kikyo had never been given, and so she greedily ate it up. The two married, and he took her out of that hell and into the Zoldyck family. She was a smart woman, and when given the resources helped push the Zoldyck family to greater heights. But she was damaged. Abuse was love. Suffocation was love. Cruelty was love. This was the love she knew, and so this was the love she passed on to her children. When her favored son attacked and scarred her face in his escape from home, she was beyond excited. Her son had given in to his killer ways, and even returned some of her love. She was elated when he returned. Less so when he wanted to leave after talking with their father. She knew her son was going through a phase, yes, a phase. He was at such a delicate point in his life. As a loving mother, she had to help him make the right decision, even if that meant she had to enforce a little discipline. The matriarch of the Zoldyck family enjoyed a lovely tea party for herself outside of their mansion. As she sipped her tea, her butler greeted her with a low bow. Goto was a loyal butler with the Zoldyck family. He was pristine, powerful, and rarely ever smiled. He kept his dark hair pulled back in a low ponytail, and his glasses were always without a smudge. His stoic nature was reinforced by a perpetually dry expression. Even so, Goto had a soft spot for Kikyo, and so he always spoke in a kinder tone when addressing her. Kikyo-sama, Goto gently began, 2 guests have arrived. According to the doorman, they claimed to be friends of Killua. One of them has opened the testing gates. The testing gate opened? Yes. Kikyo was silent for a moment, processing this alarming information. This was it. This was a time when her son needed her to make the right choice for him. This is a critical time for Killua. We cannot allow any distractions to come near him, especially such unnecessary things as friends. Do you understand? Kikyo stressed. Yes, my lady. Kikyo smiled in relief behind her bandaged face. Yes. She would help her son. Whatever it took. Bonus TT, whoa. Miwa, gone, and Killua abruptly teleported into the Zoldyck manor where the family members were sitting down to enjoy dinner. Sup guys? Just letting you know this is my best friend Gon, Killua said, patting Gon's shoulder, and this is my other best friend Miwa. Gon and Miwa waved. Bye bitches, Killua said cheerfully before Miwa teleported them away. Chapter 11, Saw-Scaled Viper 2. Miwa. Gon and Miwa had traveled a fair bit up the mountain but were stopped by someone. In front of them was a girl a touch older than either of them. She had smooth dark skin, deep gray eyes, and dark purple hair combed into thick bunches each tied with a string toward the tip. She was dressed in a pristine butler's outfit and held a thick staff with a heavy ball at the top of it. Hello, Gon politely greeted her. We're here to see Killua. Please leave. You're trespassing, the girl intoned. Don't care, Miwa said flippantly. We're here to pick Killua up before we go adventuring. Are you here to escort us, or are you in our way? I can't let you pass, the girl insisted, and she drew a line into the dirt with her staff. If you try to move past this line. Miwa, as gently as she could, abruptly shoeshined to the girl in question and hit her hard enough in the jaw to knock her out instantly. Miwa! Gon exclaimed. She was going to get in our way, Miwa said with a shrug. Come on, let's go. Gon looked back down at the girl on the ground, then back up at Miwa, then he gave a big shrug as if to say yeah okay. The two friends continued on their way, happy chatting with one another as Gon asked Miwa to show him how she was doing all that super cool stuff. Then they were stopped again. This time by a woman in an absurdly frilly dress who had a bandaged face and a weird visor covering her eyes. Hovering nearby this woman was a very pretty boy, according to Miwa's nose, who was dressed in a traditional yukata and eyeing the two friends with plain contempt. Hello there, dear guests, allow me to introduce myself, came the eerily soft voice of the older woman. I am Kikyo, Killua's mother. This is Kaluko. Gon politely bowed toward the woman and Miwa followed his actions. It's nice to meet you, Kikyo-san. I'm Gon, and this is Miwa. We're Killua's friends and we're here to pick him up. I'm afraid I cannot allow that. Killua is not able to see either of you for the moment, Kikyo intoned. Gon let out a his eyes narrowing as he glanced over at Miwa. Like a light bulb went off inside his head, a mischievous spark ignited inside him. Gon had a wide grin stretch over his face that made Miwa uneasy. He's about to do something stupid, Miwa immediately realized. Sure enough, Gon slung an arm around Miwa's shoulder as his grin took down Kurama levels of impish glee. Well, Miwa's not just Killua's friend, she's his fiancée. Gon chirped. He asked her to marry him and everything. Surely, you can understand why it's important these two meets up again? Oh, no. Kurama's taunting laughter echoed inside Miwa's head, as both understood how their little joke from before could be misconstrued into something a lot more serious now, especially when told to the mother of said friend. This caused an instant reaction from both Zoldyck family members. Kikyo sputtered, her whole body trembling with shock. Wah. Miwa opened her mouth to correct this assumption, but then realized that maybe this would allow them to see Killua. And the woman seemed to not want them to see Killua, which annoyed Miwa, so she thought, fuck her. That's a lie, the younger sibling snarled. My brother would never ask someone like you to marry him. How rude, Miwa said, only mildly offended. I'll have you know I'm quite the catch. I can kick his ass. Besides, why don't you just ask him yourself? Which of you opened the test gate? Kikyo demanded. Gon pointed to Miwa, and Miwa raised her hand. You opened all of the gates? Do it again. Let me see it. Kikyo stomped toward Miwa, grabbing the younger girl's hand and proceeding to drag her back down the mountain. Killua wouldn't be happy if I killed his mom, would he? Miwa hesitantly thought, disliking how the woman was literally dragging her around. She seemed a little strange. She didn't ooze malice, but rather, she seemed sad, broken, almost. Most people like their parents, so probably not, Kurama allowed. What made her so sad? Miwa wondered. The trip back down the mountain took several minutes, and it took another minute for Miwa to once again open all the gates. She had to borrow Kurama's chakra for the second time that day, but since she was better prepared for it, she was able to keep all of it inside so it wouldn't leak out and potentially harm Killua's family. Kikyo was hard to read. Since her face was entirely bandaged, Miwa could only judge her by the smell of her pheromones, which was hard to do under all her perfume. Her entire body was stock still. The younger sibling was easier to judge. The boy felt actually, now that Miwa thought about it, he was dressed as a girl, so he probably wanted to be perceived as a girl. The girl fell to her knees in stunned awe. Suddenly Kikyo burst forward and wrapped Miwa into a tight hug. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. That strength so young, yes. With Killua and that strength my darling grandchildren will be perfect. Miwa was stiff under Kikyo's hug, uncertain if she was supposed to be happy or uncomfortable with the sudden embrace. The woman's perfume was overwhelming and made Miwa hold her breath. She might have almost thought Kikyo wore it on purpose to give Miwa a headache, but that was silly. She was Killua's mother, which meant Miwa had to treat her a bit nicer. Maybe it was a good thing the lady liked Miwa? Miwa didn't see how it would hurt her friendship with Killua and Gon at the very least. Kikyo abruptly released Miwa, before grabbing her hand and proceeding to drag her back up the mountain. Tea. We must have tea. Goto, prepare tea for our guests. Miwa and Gon exchanged looks before shrugging. Kikyo. Had someone told Kikyo at the start of the day that she would meet her future daughter-in-law for her favorite son, she would have killed them. Killua was obviously going to become the next Zoldyck leader. He was a prodigy, and had such potential that Kikyo simply knew he was going to be the best. He was going to surpass his father and his grandfather in time. She knew it like she knew the sky was blue. With such a high standard, Killua's inevitable wife had to be equally prestigious. Kikyo had already been scouring through the potential heiresses to provide her with grandchildren, but none so far had matched up. To be the next matriarch of the Zoldyck family, and future mother of Killua's children, she had to meet a high bar. Now simply opening the gate didn't grant Miwa that instant status, but it certainly shot her up the list. At the very least Kikyo found a potential future mother. And the fact that it was Killua who proposed the marriage told Kikyo that there was more to this Miwa than simple strength. Which was why she had to do a little digging. It didn't take long for everyone to be situated in the mansion. Miwa and Gon were guided into the guest room where tea and light snacks were prepared. As Miwa and Gon took a seat on the couch together, Kikyo took a seat opposite of them, with the butler Goto standing behind her. Tell me about yourself, Kikyo began in earnest. Where are you from? Konoha, Miwa answered, picking up one of the scones and giving it a sniff before biting into it. Kikyo didn't recognize the town, but that didn't mean much. What did your parents do? My mother was a kunoichi, but she retired when she became pregnant with me, Miwa answered after a moment of silence. She tilted her head as if she were listening to another voice, but Kikyo didn't hear anything, so she dismissed it as an odd quirk. My father was a shinobi. The was implied they were deceased. Convenient, but acceptable. Kikyo didn't want to have to deal with insufferable in-laws. Dead ones were ideal. Another check in Miwa's favor. And you? Are you a kunoichi? Kikyo pressed. Kunoichi, Miwa confirmed, her tone more confident than before. Although I guess hunter, too? We just got our licenses. Gon nodded encouragingly at that, happily munching on some of the provided cookies. Check, check, check. Kikyo had confirmed that Miwa effortlessly murdered the two harassers from this morning. According to the doorman, she had moved too fast for even him to spot, and after brutally twisting their legs around she stomped on them to death. Thrilling. A hunter license at this age spoke of competence. Strength, check. Competence, check. Ability to kill in cold blood, check. Yes, yes, yes. Kikyo wanted to grin viciously at this ideal find. She would need more time to vet her, but Miwa was passing all the fundamental requirements. She even had unique physical traits. Whiskered cheeks, blonde hair, big blue eyes. Kikyo could already picture how utterly adorable her grandchildren would look. How wonderful it would be to see those grandchildren stand proudly over their first kills. Miwa was dressed in horrid clothes, but that could be fixed. She could be cleaned up like Silva did for Kikyo. Kikyo felt her heart skip a cold beat at the reminder of that horrible, horrible place. Steering away from those cruel memories, Kikyo asked Miwa, "What do you want in life? Adventure?" Miwa guessed, her brow furrowed. I don't know. Lacks direction, Kikyo thought, but that's fine because I can give her direction. She would, too. If this girl was going to be the future mother of her grandchildren, it was the least Kikyo could do to provide her with direction, such as strive to becoming the ideal matriarch for the Zoldyck family. A sick thrill surged throughout Kikyo. Miwa. Killua's mom kept asking Miwa all sorts of odd questions, which wasn't terribly surprising. Miwa supposed most mothers would want to know about the people her was essentially backpacking with, but she hardly asked Gon anything yet. She's vetting you for courtship with her spawn, Kurama yawned. Not being subtle about it, either. Should I tell her it was just a joke? Nah. Watching humans make themselves look stupid is a hobby of mine, Kurama jeered. When Miwa found a lull in the questions, she decided to ask one of her own. Where's Killua? Killua is talking with his father now, Kikyo answered dismissively. He had to be disciplined first after running off, you know. Although I was so proud of him, too. He did this to me, you see, he's turning into such a fine killer. Kikyo gestured to her bandaged face, gushing about how Killua had done that to her. Another fucking masochist? Kurama groaned in pain. Miwa. Miwa really didn't know how to respond to that. The woman was clearly proud of Killua, and Miwa didn't think Killua would just scar his mother's face for no reason. Exactly what kind of relationship did Killua have with his family? Or was this woman the odd one out? Miwa had an instinctive feeling that she was broken, somehow. Was she delusional? Insane? Violent? Should I ask Killua? She's barely a fly on our radar, not worth the trouble to care about. I meant, do you think he would be mad if I asked? How the hell would I know? Would you be mad? So in this scenario I am the child of a deranged woman and someone I've known for barely a month wants to ask about my situation? I'd be liable to eat that person. Miwa decided against asking Killua. Kikyo daintily cleared her throat. Now, while you're here, let's go ahead and get your measurements. My why Miwa asked, but then she was yanked up by another butler as a third butler proceeded to wrap a cloth measuring tape around her. Weird, Miwa thought. They worked with quick efficiency, and then she felt a prick of a needle in her arm. They drew her blood. Ha! Ha! A simple check to make sure you're free of any disease or genetic issue, Kikyo explained. Oh, wow, thanks, Miwa thanked her. She didn't think she had anything of the sort, but how would she know? Meanwhile, Killua's father was a man that Killua deeply respected. Silva Zoldyck was an infamous assassin. He was strong, intelligent, and cunning, all traits that Killua strove to mimic. Silva trained Killua to be an assassin, and for a while that was enough for Killua. But then came a day that Killua decided he wanted more than just that life. He wanted to experience a normal childhood, he wanted to experience friends. He left his home in pursuit of that desire. He had thought, at that time, that his father would not tolerate his return, that his father might punish Killua, or demand Killua to give up those wants. It was a worrisome thought. When Killua did return, he was ushered into a cell for his punishment. His mother insisted on confinement while Killua sorted out his thoughts, while one of his older brothers insisted on revenge via whipping Killua. Killua indulged both their requests because these were the two he had hurt in his escape. He wasn't sorry for his behavior, but he did feel bad that he took it out on them. Confinement was easy. He needed time to think anyway. The physical torture was something that could be ignored. He had trained his body to tolerate high levels of pain, and none of the attacks hit hard enough to draw blood or break his bones. He knew, also, that each member were trying to help in their own ways. His mother genuinely believed Killua would do better if he stayed with the family. Her view on the outside world was dismal and cynical thanks to her history. His brother, Mil, believed Killua was mentally weak and unstable and needed firm discipline. It was a twisted sort of help, but Killua acknowledged their efforts. It was all his family had ever known, after all. They never had a chance to meet people like Gon or Miwa. This punishment was put on an abrupt hold, however, when Silva called for Killua. And so came the moment that Killua dreaded. Killua entered his father's office, his eyes adjusted to the pale blue light that filled it. His father was a big, strong man with long white hair and cat-like blue eyes. Silva sat on his couch, his gaze neither angry nor happy, but a careful neutral. Father, Killua greeted respectfully. Killua. Come, sit with me, Silva said, gesturing toward a spot on the couch beside him. I want to hear it, all of it. Tell me about your time in the exam. What was it like? Who did you meet? Killua's eyes widened in disbelief, and a brief flame of hope warmed his heart. Then he gave a shy smile and began to tell his tale. Miwa. Miwa was starting to get a little tired from all the questions. Kikyo seemed to have an endless stream of them, and the delicious food could only help so much. She was finally, saved from having to answer more when Killua entered the room, dressed in an odd outfit and carrying 2 backpacks. His presence caused a stir in Kikyo, and she stood up quickly, her tone elated. Killua. Yo, Killua casually greeted. Father said I could go. No, I think it would be best. Kikyo winced, and Miwa picked up the sound of something coming from her visor. It was too quiet for Miwa to discern, but it was clearly someone talking. But dear. Kikyo bit her lip, clearly distressed. We'll be back, Miwa hesitantly said. The food was really good. I'll come back, mother, Killua added. It's important. With the promise to return, Kikyo relaxed. Yes, you will come back, of course you would. There are wedding plans to be made, and more history checks to be done, yes of course. Miwa leaned in to whisper to Killua, I think your mother is taking the marriage joke very seriously. Killua whispered back, yep. Neither were brave enough to correct the woman. That was a problem for future Killua and Miwa to solve. Gon nudged Miwa, leaning in to quietly murmur, go hug her. What? Miwa hissed. She already hugged you, so she must like hugs. Go hug her, Gon insisted, grinning a rather playful grin. Miwa hesitated for a split second before approaching Kikyo and giving her a hug. Kikyo didn't really react, which made Miwa feel awkward, especially when she noticed the smirks Killua and Gon exchanged, but at least Kikyo didn't have a meltdown or something. Father wanted to see you, mother, Killua said, a very obvious bait to get Kikyo to leave. A bait she took, though, because with a grumble Kikyo headed off. That wasn't an awkward hug at all, Killua teased the moment Kikyo left. Shut up, Miwa grouched. Here, Killua said, giving Miwa a bulky bag stuffed with clothes. These are some of my old clothes. Use these instead. Miwa raised an eyebrow at that, a silent inquiry as to why? Because your clothes look like a bunch of stolen rags you pieced together on the streets, Killua said with a roll of his eyes. It's completely uncool. Miwa couldn't say what was cool or uncool, nor did she particularly care. She touched the clothes inside, felt how delightfully soft, comfortable, and sturdy they were and acknowledged they were a significant upgrade to what she was currently wearing. With a shrug, she placed the bag down on the coffee table before she started to tug off her shirt. No. Killua quickly said, red-faced and panicking. Don't change here. There's a bathroom down the hall. Prude, Miwa said with a sniff, grabbing the clothes and doing exactly that as she heard Gon's laughter in the background. Killua had gifted her with some really nice, military-grade nice black cargo pants with dark purple and blue camouflage print. It had plenty of pockets for Miwa to stuff her scrolls in, and felt like it wouldn't tear easily. There were a variety of pants of similar nature inside the bag, but Miwa liked these pants best, so she wore them first. Accompanying them was a sleeveless purple vest with a high collar. The vest had a nice stash of inside pockets, and was thick and sturdy. The clothes were actually pretty nice. Practical, easy to move in, and comfortable. What made Miwa choose the vest first was because of the hood. It had ears on it. Miwa didn't have much of a concept of cute, but she thought Killua must have looked cute in a cat-eared hoodie. She wished she could see Gon in a similar hoodie, because he would also look very cute in it. Do I look cute? Miwa asked Kurama, assessing her appearance in the mirror. She could practically see the dramatic eye roll from Kurama. How the hell am I supposed to know? You're cute, Miwa thought. Fluffy and warm. That's cute. Using myself as a reference and those terms, then no. You have no fur, and you're nowhere near my body temperature. Miwa nodded in agreement, accepting this. Heading back out to the living room, she quietly said, thank you. Killua looked her up and down before giving a smile. Much better. Do you have scrolls that we can put our backpacks in? Those things are way easier to carry around. Miwa pulled out a few extra storage scrolls, tossing one to Gon, who she realized hadn't had a chance to see them in use, and the other one to Killua. Great, now I don't suppose you have a mark near a building called Heaven's Arena? Killua asked. Miwa had to rummage through her memories of the new world and found. I don't think so, she admitted. That's fine. We can take an airship there, Killua said. Then what are we waiting for? Gon asked. And the three kids grinned. Bonus TT, whoa. Killua and Miwa kicked down the door to Aluka's room. Ha! Aluka exclaimed, startled. You're running away with us, Killua flippantly told her as Miwa picked her up. I'm adopting you now, Miwa politely informed her. Okay, Aluka hesitantly agreed. I'm your new uncle, Gon added, stepping into the child's room. Now let's get out of here before the rest of the family get over their concussions. Agreed, Killua and Miwa echoed. Chapter 12, Lioness Eye. Heaven's Arena was an absurdly tall white tower that loomed above any skyscraper Miwa had previously seen. Killua, who had already been here before, expertly guided Gon and Miwa from Miwa's mark to the tower. Once inside the tower, the trio of kids had to join an absurdly long line. Whoa! Are all these people here for the arena? Gon asked, impressed by the line. There are no rules fighting here like for the hunter exam. You just have to knock your opponent out. The higher you go, the more prize money you earn. This is as good as it gets for those looking to make a living with their fists, Killua set a cheerful smile on his face. We'll be able to do some good training here, and make some money for our adventure. It took about 2 hours of waiting in line. The kids passed the time by coming up with outrageous stories, but they did eventually reach the registration form. Miwa stared blankly at the form, unable to read what it said except for the words, name and age. Killua took it for her, and filled it out on her behalf. You really gotta learn to read sometime. I'm working on it. Miwa defended, embarrassed. Killua Zoldyck, you are number 2054, Gon Freaks, you are number 2055, Miwa, you are number 2056. They'll call your number on the first floor of the arena, so make sure you remember it. Please go ahead. The trio of friends headed off to the arena, entering a large white-walled room with numerous little fighting rings scattered about. A lot of the contestants were absurdly large men trying to wrestle one another, each covered in sweat and blood. It reeked. Miwa reflexively pinched her nose shut, hating the smell. It was literally so bad she almost reflexively shot out a Biju bomb to destroy the disgusting pig pen they had to inhale. I wish I had some oil to dab under my nose. Ugh, have they never heard of a shower? They look like they would taste of nothing but grease, Kurama muttered disdainfully. Revolting. You okay, Miwa? Gon asked, noticing how she was clutching her nose. Fucking reeks, she muttered crossly. Ugh, this is nauseating. It gets better later, Killua reassured her. Hang in there for a few more minutes, okay? Okay. The three children took a seat among the benches, barely getting a minute to relax before Gon's number was called. Gon excitedly hurried up to one of the fighting rings. She couldn't hear what the referee was saying. The other fights were loud, and he was apparently speaking quietly, but Gon and the stupidly large man he was about to fight both nodded before taking up positions. Gon raised the palm of his hand and then. Miwa's breath hitched the moment she sensed Gon's chakra Nen core fluctuate. A trickle of its energy rushed out to Gon's hand and Gon shoved the large man straight out of the arena. Did he just use chakra? He's never done that before, Kurama observed. Intuitive brat? Gon stared down at his hand in amazement before letting out a cheer and heading back to his friends. That was an impressive push, Miwa praised Gon when he returned, her eyes narrowed as assessed his calm core. How did you do it? Gon shrugged. I just did what you did when you opened the gates. Whoa, unexpected genius. An idiot in a lot of regards, but maybe he has some potential in combat? As soon as we have time, I'd like to test them to see if they can use that energy like chakra. Good job, Gon, Killua said, clapping Gon on the shoulder. What floor are you being sent up to now? 50, Gon answered. 2056 against 1798, please step forward. Ah, that's me, Miwa murmured, hopping off her bench and heading to one of the empty rings. She was also fighting another robust man who reeked of body odor. If Miwa had less restraint, she might have gagged from the foul stench that assaulted her sensitive sense of smell. The referee called for the fight to start, and the man threw himself at Miwa. Miwa absently waved her hand, conjuring a blast of futon chakra that blew her opponent out of the ring and through the wall behind him. Weaker than ants. Ugh. Miwa idly ran her fingers through her pigtails, internally agreeing with Kurama's assessment. The referee frowned thoughtfully at the unconscious man before turning to Miwa. Alright, I'm going to move you up to floor 50. He signed off on some piece of paper with scribbles Miwa couldn't read and handed it over to Miwa. Miwa accepted it before hopping off the arena and taking a seat next to Gon as Killua finished up his own match. Killua waved a sheet paper that looked similar to Miwa's. "Looks like we're all going to 50. HWAH, came a loud war cry, drawing the trio's attention to it. The one who had bellowed out this cry was a tiny little boy in a white karate gi. He was half their size, and this little boy had furiously punched his opponent straight out of the arena. So tiny, Miwa thought, having a hard time not viewing the tiny boy as a tiny little baby animal. He had fluffy caramel brown hair and baby fat on his cheeks that made Miwa want to pinch them. "Cute. Faye," scoffed Kurama. "Come on guys, let's go," Killua said, turning away and heading off. Gon and Miwa followed closely behind him. It was such a relief to step outside of that nasty-ass rank gymnasium that Miwa loudly sighed and wiped at her nose. "Maybe we should get you some eucalyptus oil," Gon suggested. "When the fishermen came to visit our island, they said that when they first started out they had to dab some under their nose to keep from gagging from the smell of the fish. As long as we don't have to go anywhere near such a gross room again, I'll be fine," Miwa said after a moment of thought. "Killua, we don't have to go into another room like that again, do we? None of the other levels are quite that bad," he said. "Probably." Miwa gulped. "Probably? The first 200 floors of Heaven's Arena are divided into classes, each comprised of 10 floors. Which means that a fighter who wins on the 50th floor advances to the 60th floor. If they lose, then they drop down to the 40th, the elevator lady began to explain as they began the climb up to the 50th floor. Gon, Killua, and Miwa had hopped on the elevator as soon as they could, but they were joined by that small kid with the chubby cheeks. "I heard that they comp you a room once you reach the 100th floor, the little boy chirped, drawing the trio's attention to him. He grinned widely at them. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. OSU. My name is Zushi. What about you guys?" "I'm Killua," Killua said, offering the boy a polite smile. "I'm Gon." "Nice to meet you," Gon said cheerfully. Miwa nodded her head to the boy, trying out a polite smile. The smile felt awkward on her face, and she was worried that the boy might be intimidated by her fangs. Small children tended to look away quickly when they saw the fangs. "Miwa, we've arrived," the elevator girl said, and the doors to the mildly stinky elevator opened up. As the children began to file off, Zushi said, "I saw your fights earlier." "That was really amazing." Killua frowned at that. "What are you talking about? You made it up here with one match, too." Zushi held up a flat hand. No. I still have a long way to go. By the way, which martial arts discipline do you practice? I study the Shinjin Ryu fighting technique. Discipline? Killua echoed, eyebrows raising in thoughtful surprise. Gon and I don't have one, I think. Miwa maybe? Miwa made an affirming noise. I suppose taijutsu, then, eh? You two are that strong with no training? Zushi gasped, then hung his head. I'm kind of shocked. OSU. I still have a long way to go. He's peppy, like a puppy. Puppy whuppy. Zushi raised his head, his bright amber gaze now on Miwa, and he asked, I haven't heard of taijutsu before, though. What's that? It's a little hard to explain, Miwa hedged, not really wanting to get into the middle of an explanation on chakra and taijutsu while they were still standing in a crowded hallway. A disheveled man in a pink shirt, unkempt dark hair, and crooked glasses clapped as he walked to the group. Well done, Zushi. Master. Zushi exclaimed. You adhered to my teachings, the man praised, lowering his hands and offering a smile that reminded Miwa of a playground that was empty, and teachers who smiled nicely at the other students but sourly at her. The smile was still on their faces, but there was an unspoken layer of disgust, of resentment, of pity. Miwa subtly shifted her posture to take a step back from the man that had approached them, eyes narrowing warily. OSU. I'm honored. Master, your shirt is untucked again, Zushi added. Oh, sorry, the teacher apologized, quickly tucking his shirt back in. Who are they? Oh, this is Killua, Gon, and Miwa, Zushi explained. The man slightly bowed toward them. Nice to meet you. I'm Wing. I wasn't expecting other kids to be here besides Zushi. Why are you here? We want to become stronger, but we're also broke, Killua explained nonchalantly. So we're making money simultaneously. Gon added, Killua's been here before. Wing let out an O. If you're up here, you must be fairly skilled, but you should pay strict attention to your opponent's body as well as your own. The children had to bid the teacher goodbye to collect their reward before moving up to the next floor. A quick stop at one of the desks, and they were each given an envelope with prize money. What good does money do? Miwa wrinkled her nose. The only person who says that is someone who doesn't understand the value of it, or doesn't need it, Killua dryly remarked. Miwa shrugged, nonchalantly answer, I don't need money. I just steal what I need. Or take it off their corpses. Yeah, that too. I'm going to guess you don't have a bank account set up either, Killua sighed. No. Can't you take it? Miwa asked. Yeah, sure, Killua said with a wave of his hand, rolling his eyes. Miwa grinned at him, happily handing off the envelope to him. There's only enough in here for a juice, Gon observed, counting the Jenny coins. Win or lose on the first floor and that's all you're going to get. A win over an opponent in the 50s nets you 50,000. On the 100th floor I think wins are worth $1 million. Gon and Zushi did a double take at that number while Killua used the money to buy a juice from the vending machine for him and Miwa. He tossed one of the cans to Miwa, who shrugged before opening it and taking a swig. He took a sip of his own juice before continuing, once you're past the 150th floor, you get 10 million a pop. Gon was gaping like a fish out of water. 10 million? Didn't you make it to floor 200 when you were here before? The 200th? Zushi squeaked. Miwa's nose crinkled as she tasted the odd juice Killua bought for her. It was way too sour, no sweetness at all. She abruptly handed it back to him. How much do you get for winning on the 200th? Gon asked. Killua shrugged. Dunno, because I quit once I reached it. But when I won on the 100th floor, I had around 200 million in total. Where's that money now? That was 4 years ago, of course, it's gone now, Killua laughed. I spent it all on snacks. Killua chugged Miwa's drink, finished his own, then tossed the cans away in the recycling bin. Come on. Let's go to the waiting room now. We made it through unscathed in the first round, so they're going to put us in another match today. The waiting room did not smell nice. It did not smell nice at all. It was filled with men, where are the girls, who were too muscular to be healthy, and who apparently did not understand the concept of basic hygiene. They wore shirts that were soaked in sweat, some had bloodstains on them, and all of them fucking smelled fucking gross, fuck. Miwa hadn't noticed she had pulled out 2 kunai and was about to start a bloodbath. Fresh blood overrode everything else and was much better to smell than their fucking nasty BO, but thankfully Killua and Gon carefully put their hands on Miwa's arm. Killua gently plucked out the kunai, easy now. Gon fished out a ragged handkerchief. Here, breathe through this. It doesn't smell the best, but it's better than those guys. Miwa reluctantly allowed Killua to take her weapons away, gratefully accepting Gon's handkerchief in the process. It still stunk, but it stunk like Gon, which was significantly better than the BO of strange men who apparently don't shower. Number 2056, Miwa, and number 1512, please report to Arena 3. Looks like the first thing we buy with the next round of money is some scented stuff since Miwa's too delicate, Killua whispered to Gon, a wide taunting smirk on his face. Probably for the best. I don't think Miwa could handle much more, Gon whispered back, eyes sparkling with mockery. Both boys gave Miwa a mockingly pitiful look. Brats, she muttered crossly, resisting the urge to react to their blatant teasing as she headed off to her next arena match. But true to their word, both boys started carrying around scented candles and oils after that day. Cheeky brats. Chapter 13, Lioness 2. Miwa's match was unsurprisingly one-sided. Most matches would go on until a technical victory was achieved, each successful hit earned 1 hit, and 10 points made a victory, but Miwa was so laughably stronger than the fodder thrown at her it was over with a wave of her hand. Killing them was not currently allowed, so she was forced to blow them out of the arena with the use of futon chakra. When she was done with her match she headed to where she was told to meet up with Gon and Killua prior. Gon was already waiting for her, and he waved cheerfully upon noticing her. Miwa picked Gon up and tossed him up to the ceiling, eliciting a boyish giggle out of him. She caught him on the way back down, then tossed him back up again. He did a little roll in the air before coming back down. She set him back on his feet, smiling at his joyous grin. That was fun. What was it for? Gon asked. I dunno. Just wanted to. Do it again, he sheepishly asked, causing Miwa to giggle at him. She bent her nose forward to nuzzle him, reminiscent to how an animal would show affection. Her bangs tickled him, though, so he giggled again. She tossed him back up a few more times, ignoring some of the odd stares the bystanders gave them until Killua arrived. He watched Miwa toss Gon up and down, a slight frown on his face. She noticed it and asked, Do you want to be tossed, too? Poof. Do what you want, Killua said, turning his nose up. How lucky for him I speak Sundara, Miwa thought, popping out a shadow clone and starting to toss Killua now. Can you toss us from the ground of the skyscraper to above the skyscraper? Gon asked excitedly. Probably. But we'd need more distance since I'd have to use futon chakra to safely catch you, she said. Futon? Killua echoed, arms folded over his chest as he pretended very hard to look like he was not enjoying being tossed. The little twitching in the corner of his mouth betrayed him, though. Miwa nodded. MN. Miwa tossed her friends for another 10 minutes before letting them down and dismissing the clone. Then next time let's do that. Gon decided for the three of them. Okay, Miwa agreed with a smile. Once the trio reached floor 100, they were given private rooms. And it was here that Killua decided they were ready to learn about Miwa's chakra. The energy inside us, at its core, is the same, Miwa said, as she took a seat on Gon's bed. Gon and Killua both sat crisscross on either side of her. And after observing your course closely the past couple of days, I can say with absolute certainty that both of you have already been subconsciously drawing on it. I do, / on what? Killua and Gon exclaimed at the same time. You do realize most children, regardless of how much they physically train, can't do the things you two are doing, Miwa pointed out, frowning. Your strength, speed, and so on is dependent on your subconscious use of Nen, or chakra, or whatever you want to call it. If you can learn to consciously control this energy, there's no reason you can't learn ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, huinjutsu, and so forth. At least, I don't currently see why not. Although the use without a proper chakra network will be interesting, it's perfectly possible that they won't be able to do so because they lack that network. There's really only one way to find out, though. Does that include teleportation and those completely awesome raisin balls? Killua excitedly demanded. Those are family secrets, she reminded him. We're getting married, so it's okay, right? Miwa rolled her eyes at that, as Gon whined, What? I want to learn that stuff, too. What is it with boys and wanting to learn new and dangerous ways to kill your enemies? I seem to remember a certain little girl wanting to learn all sorts of nasty little tricks. That's completely different. Aha. Miwa coughed to clear her throat, fighting back her blush. Well, you're going to have to learn the basic stuff first anyway. Try learning to control your energy first, and we can move on to some ninjutsu later. Both boys let out a whoop before tackling into her to hug her. Ah! Miwa squeaked, her face flaming red, which only caused her friends to laugh at her. We're getting off topic. It still took a couple of minutes for both boys to stop teasing their red-faced companion, and a few more for Miwa to calm down enough to resume instruction. Anyway. Miwa cleared her throat, fiddling with her pigtails. We'll start off on first locating your energy core. How are we going to do that? Gon asked. Miwa reached out to both of them, placing a palm on their chests. I'm going to give you a small taste of my own raw chakra. Once you're aware of the feeling of chakra inside of you, you should at least have an idea of what to look for. Finding your core after that will be entirely dependent on you. Miwa began to gently push out her own raw chakra, Kurama helpfully pulling out his chakra in the process so neither boys would be poisoned. She leveled it out, and carefully guided it inside of both boys, just barely going underneath the skin. Chakra could become dense enough to cut through solid bone, but at its base it was intangible. It's how auras could be passed through without fuss. Warm, Gon breathed out, eyes widening in startlement. Killua was silent, but his expression of wonderment spoke volumes. Chakra is unique to every person, Miwa explained. This is my chakra, my signature. You're warm. Like a campfire. Gon told her, placing his hand over hers. Do you know what we feel like? MN's Gon, when I sense your chakra you feel like a still pond with water that goes deeper than the ocean, Miwa answered. And Killua is like fresh snowfall in a quiet forest, cold and soft all at once. She retracted her hands, and both boys blinked vapidly as Miwa's chakra left them. Killua reached up and touched his chest where Miwa's hand had been. That was weird. In a good way, though. Miwa scratched her cheek, feeling oddly sheepish. I don't know if this might help you too, but the chairman, Netero, mentioned that this world refers to chakra as none. Nav. Miwa, is this energy something everyone has? Killua suddenly asked. Did you see it in my brother, maybe? Yes. Your brother and Hisoka had cores that reflected years of training with the energy. This must be it. Killua muttered, his brow furrowing. Did you see Zushi use this energy? His core is much smaller than either of yours, but it does show some use, Miwa tried to explain, her eyes narrowing as she thought back on the small boy. He's a little oak sapling that's finally above a ground. Then, do you think Zushi's teacher, Wing, is the one who is teaching him? Gon guessed. What was his core like, Miwa? It certainly showed a lot of control. I didn't pay that much attention to his typing, though, Miwa admitted. I wonder if there's any difference between Nen and Chakra training? Killua mused. We can always ask Zushi, Gon suggested. It certainly wouldn't hurt, Miwa agreed. It would be nice to know the key differences in Chakra against Nen. Finding Zushi was easy. Asking about Nen was easier, and to the trio's surprise, Wing interrupted Zushi's explanation and offered to give proper instruction. That was how everyone ended up at Wing's home, several blocks away from Heaven's arena. Nen, or flame, is a power that inflames our souls, he began. In other words, it is the strength of your will. And the 4 exercises are part of a training curriculum that strengthens your will. 10. Focus the mind on a single point, reflect upon the self, and determine the goal. Zetsu, express or put into words. Rin, temper, or intensify, that will. Lastly, Hatsu, release it into action. Miwa tapped on her chin, the description sounding off. Nen is only, what? A manifestation of will? But I definitely feel a combination of spiritual and physical energy inside of them. That's the definition of chakra, their energy core has to be similar to chakra, at the very least. Killua, in your match against Zushi, Zushi tempered his refusal to lose, Wing added. So, allow me to demonstrate. Killua, I am going to kill you now. What? Is that all right? Wing inquired. Sure, Killua said with a shrug. What? Wing smiled politely in response. Then let's go in order. First 10, I focus my mind on a single point. Wing changed his stance into some kind of weird position, where his knees were bent down and his 2 arms crossed straight down. Zetsu, express yourself mentally or verbally. I will kill you. There was a shift in the energy inside of Wing, the energy slowly spreading out to cover every inch of his form without the use of a network to guide it. Oh, Miwa thought, impressed by this level of control. That ratio, though. At its base, all core energies had a natural state of perfect balance. 50% spiritual, and 50% physical, or a 5-to-5 ratio. Undergoing nature transformations would change this ratio, skewing it in favor of the physical or spiritual. There were rare exceptions when different forms of chakra were added in, such as Kurama's chakra added into Miwa's base changed her flat ratio into 5-to-5-to-3. Going past 10, or 100% always created for volatile or unstable reactions, hence why using Kurama's chakra or senjutsu since that was added on, too, was so dangerous. While Wing was drawing upon his base energy, he did a complete flip. His ratio, once 5-to-5, was now entirely skewed to 10 at physical energy. Is Nen a change in chakra? Miwa questioned. She had never ever heard about a type of nature that could be entirely physical or entirely spiritual. Seeing Wing's energy transform to such an extent was absolutely insane, borderline impossible. The result of the change, though, was a sudden burst of malicious intent. Miwa idly scratched at her cheek as the man released an aura of bloodlust and murderous intent. She was completely fascinated by this outstanding revelation of Nen, and simply couldn't be bothered to care. Besides, compared to Kurama's default presence of volatile chakra, it couldn't make Miwa even bat an eye. For some reason it made Gon take a step back, and Killua straight up leapt up onto the ceiling in a defensive position. A bit like a cat, actually, which made Miwa want to giggle at him. Kurama straight up laughed at their reactions. They're scared of a little ant? Ah ha 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 ha. The energy died off though, and his core snapped back to a default state. His signature was a lot like a mountain, and Miwa wondered if signatures played a role in the ratio? Wing said with a smile, that was Ren. With enough strength and focus, the will functions as action, or Hatsu. If your will is strong enough, you can make your opponent back down without moving a muscle. The concept of bluffing is derived from this. Ren hardens that which is soft, and you lose the ability to correct an incorrect idea. Therefore, you should avoid using Ren until your soul has fully matured. Stop, Miwa cut in, shaking her head furiously. No, no, no. That's not what you did. Your core, it's all physical energy. Ha? Did his chakra change? Gon asked, as Killua hopped down from the ceiling and reluctantly rejoined the duo. Like a change in chakra, Miwa explained, looking up at Wing with wide eyes. What you teach, and what I was taught are completely different. Your reference of willpower, though, might explain why your energy turns into physical energy. But if you're talking about the soul, then you should be using your spiritual energy, right? But you didn't use any spiritual energy at all, that was entirely physical. Wing blinked once, twice, then thrice, at Miwa's explanation. Pardon? Chakra? Amen. Like. Miwa walked up the wall and stood upside down on the ceiling. See? I've moved chakra to the bottom of my feet, but since it's not a change in nature, it's remaining at its base. When you did that Ren thing, you turned your energy into something entirely physical. What? How are you doing that? Zushi gasped. You get used to it, Gon told him, patting the top of his head. Miwa flipped off the ceiling and summoned her Rasengan. This is also not a change in nature. But when I change natures. Wing held up a hand to stop her. Hold on. Let's go back to the beginning. What is chakra? Chakra is the fusion of physical energy and spiritual energy, Miwa recited. We all have it inside of us. At its base, it remains a perfect balance of 5-5, but when you change its nature, that ratio changes. When you use Nen, that ratio turned into 10, entirely in favor of physical. So Nen is a change in chakra, yes? I've never heard of chakra before, Wing admitted. Nor am I familiar with these energies you speak of. Here, Miwa reached forward and showed Wing her chakra like she did with Gon and Killua. You feel your chakra, too, don't you? Wing was silent for several minutes, contemplating this new information. You have already received information in chakra, and you were going to train Killua and Gon, yes? Yeah. But their bodies are different than mine. It looks like looks like most people are predisposed to use Nen, maybe? How your body different? You only have one core, she said, gesturing toward herself. I have a network that runs alongside my nervous system, and many smaller opening points throughout that network. Using these smaller points, tenketsu, I can adjust the disbursement of my chakra. With my network, I am also able to change the nature of my chakra, or use it to enhance my body. I'm not confined to categories like a Nen user, but I can instead learn all of them. Killua frowned. Then could a Nen user never learn chakra? Miwa shook her head. It's not like that, the network makes it easier to control, but at the end of the day we're using the same energy. I believe with enough skill and practice you could learn how to disperse the energy through your body without the use of the network. That's how Gon's been pushing people out of the arena, he's been using a very small amount of his energy to enhance his strength. Even you do it sometimes, Killua, without realizing it. Wing himself was able to push his entire core to cover his body, but he did so by changing the nature of it. Wing adjusted his glasses. Miwa, would you mind watching my core and telling me when my base ratio is off? Miwa nodded as Wing took a seat on the carpeted floor of his living room. He let out a slow breath and began to meditate. It took a few minutes, but his core began to fluctuate. Your core is moving, the further you push it out the more the ratio is off, Miwa observed, feeling the odd change. The ratio you have now is what's used for Doton ninjutsu. There was a thin line of sweat over Wing's forehead. I do not have control over my Nen to utilize it in its current state. It feels incomplete and intangible. Interesting, is your body predisposed and requires the complete transformation, or is it a mental block? Miwa questioned. That would be difficult to say, Wing said, glancing over at Killua and Gon. Have either of you begun your training? Both shook their heads. Then perhaps we should work together on this, Wing suggested. When comparing Miwa's chakra to my Nen, there is a noticeable difference in use. I would like to see if it's due to the network she mentioned, or if perhaps chakra is something that can be taught. That's what we want to know, too. Gon said cheerfully. Except we don't really know how to call on the energy at all right now. Wing was silent for a minute, contemplating. I have to admit I was wary of teaching Nen to the three of you, but this viewpoint on chakra has ignited a level of curiosity I am reluctant to ignore. Miwa's chakra has such a distinct feeling to it, I can't deny its familiarity to Nen, but I can also say that it's not the same either. If Nen is willpower, physical energy, and chakra is the fusion of that and spiritual energy, then what would happen if someone used entirely spiritual energy? Such a question would require someone with precision control over their spiritual and physical energies, Miwa answered. She glanced over at Gon and Killua. Are your bodies predisposed to using Nen, or can you use chakra? Only one way to find out. Gon exclaimed, practically vibrating in place from sheer bubbly excitement. Under Miwa and Wing's watchful eye, Gon and Killua took the first step in their journey to mastering that powerful energy locked away inside of them. Both were able to locate their energy, and it took them a few minutes before they began to manipulate it. They were trying to maintain the same wave of energy to keep the ratio even, but as Miwa witnessed, it was a struggle. The spiritual energy kept slipping away from them, causing the overall ratio to skew to 100% physical, or none. So, it looks like your bodies are naturally inclined to use Nen, Miwa concluded, her statement causing both boys to cancel their concentration. But I did see a fluctuation in spiritual energy. I think, given enough time and practice, you might be able to control your spiritual energy enough to learn how to use chakra. Would it be best to learn how to use Nen first, or chakra, though? Wing asked. Nen is what their bodies are inclined toward, so I would suggest that first, Miwa answered. When training in chakra, we have to first master our natural affinity before we are allowed to move on toward others. That being said, it seems like a lot of the beginning steps to using Nen are similar to chakra. Maybe they can do both? I want to do both. Gon exclaimed. We can multitask just fine, Killua agreed. Then while you practice your Nen, you can practice the leaf exercise. Miwa said cheerfully, a big grin on her face. That sounds lame. It absolutely is. Chapter 14, Lioness 3. Nen training and chakra training were done in between matches and whenever Gon and Killua had a moment to spare. The two boys had a true affinity for Nen, perfectly transforming their energy to something akin to wings. Chakra, on the other hand, proved exceedingly difficult. It's like trying to grab smoke with your bare hands, Killua had complained during one session. Their very core instincts were telling them to use Nen, and keep the ratio entirely in favor of physical. Going against that instinct was proving to be a true challenge for both of them, but they were at least able to get a leaf to stick to their forehead for a solid 2.5 seconds within the first week of training. They wouldn't be able to move on past the leaf lesson until they could move the leaf around their body for at least an hour, a feat that sounded like it would take months for the boys to complete. Still, they were determined and it was hard to deny their enthusiasm to learn. Miwa thought they looked especially cute when their eyes lit up at the simple idea of being able to use ninjutsu. At the end of the week, the trio had claimed enough consecutive victories to climb up to the 200th floor. They took the elevator up, Gon excitedly bouncing in place with a big goofy grin on his face. What's the 200th floor like, you think? Who cares, Killua said, his hands shoved deep into his pocket. The bell chimed on the elevator and the three of them stepped off. The 200th floor certainly had a luxurious feel to it, with soft red carpeting, golden accented decor, and warm lights hanging above. It also smelled like cinnamon apples, which Miwa greatly appreciated. The three began to head down the hallway toward the reception and stopped short in a dark hallway. The reason they had stopped was because of the blatantly thick malicious aura that permeated it. Is this a challenge? Kurama cooed. Certainly, feels like it, Miwa thought, a little annoyed at their arrogance. Whoever was at the end of the hallway certainly had to be stupid, or craving for death. She thought the aura felt a little familiar, so maybe she had run into its owner before? Nah? Gon questioned. Gotta be, Killua agreed. Come on, let's go. Miwa took the lead, the least unaffected. It was certainly aggravating that someone decided to lust for her blood at the drop of a hat, but that was the best attention she could give it. Fearful? Of what? She couldn't sense anyone in this tower with a core near her own size, let alone big enough to outlast her and Kurama. She certainly hadn't encountered a life-threatening situation since waking up. Why would she ever be afraid of some random asshole's aura? She was half tempted to give them a taste of her aura. But that might startle Gon and Killua. Both boys were still very fresh to Nen and Chakra, and the intermingling of the energies with intent, bloodlust in this case, was something that took time to overcome. Considering they were only a week into training, they were handling themselves very well. Both boys were cautious, and Miwa thought Killua looked understandably pissed, too, but neither were flinching or cold sweating. As the three made it halfway down the hallway, one of the arena workers stepped out. The aura coincidentally cut off when she did so, but Miwa could tell that her energy was completely different than the one that was directed at them previously. You three must be gone, Killua and Miwa, she inquired, a tired smile on her face. Please come with me to register for your match on the 200th floor. You must register before midnight, or you'll be disqualified. At the 200th floor, there are over 170 contestants, and you will no longer battle for prize money but rather honor. She was abruptly cut off by Hisoka approaching from behind her. He moved fast enough that Miwa almost thought he used the Shushin technique, effectively scaring the daylight out of the reception. Oh. Pardon me, she said, bowing apologetically as she pretty much turned tail and ran away from Hisoka. Don't blame her there, Miwa thought in distaste. Hisoka? Killua stammered out in surprise. Iru, Miwa whined. I don't want to fight a masochist. What are you doing here? Gon demanded, taking a step forward and stretching out an arm in a rather adorable attempt to shield Miwa and Killua from him. Like a tiny puppy yapping at a wolf, Kurama cackled. It's not that surprising, is it? Hisoka drawled out, the red-haired man turning around to smile coyly at the children. You bought your tickets online, such information can be easily found. I've been waiting for you. You're literally stalking us now? Miwa growled out, her lips pulling back into a silent snarl. She didn't consider Hisoka a dangerous person to face off against, but he could prove to be dangerous to her friends who were still learning the basics of Nen and Chakra. For someone with as refined a core as Hisoka, he could do some damage against them. Might even. Want to take his head now, then? It was tempting. Miwa's fingers twitched. It would be so easy to take that first step forward and go directly for his throat. Wait. Miwa was certainly the protective type, and her instincts had a tendency to lean more toward kill first, question later. From what Gon had explained of his previous interactions with Hisoka, Gon did not view Hisoka as someone he was truly afraid of. Rather, he saw Hisoka as a milestone to overcome. This trip, was meant to train and cultivate Killua and Gon's strength. They would be presented with a variety of increasingly powerful foes for them to overcome. If they lingered long enough, they might even have a chance to use their newfound Nen in battle. Miwa doubted they would have mastery over Chakra anytime soon. Miwa forced herself to relax, even as her eyes glared icily at the disdainful cretin. If she wanted Gon and Killua to become strong enough to protect themselves, she couldn't baby them. The moment he directed true intent to kill them, however, Miwa would rip his fucking heart out. She was faster than him, this she knew in her very soul. No one was faster than her. Certainly not some arrogant shithead fuckboy who was stalking her friends. Oh. So angry. Like a puffed-up kitten who was rudely awoken. More like a territorial serial killer who's getting taunted by a damn clown. True. You lack the flair or creative expression of a serial killer, though. Excuse me for being a boring old murderer. Not excusable. Do you know what would make me forgive your lack of imagination? How about a do not say Biju bomb. Good old-fashioned genocide from a big explosion. Despite her previous irritation, Kurama's nonchalant words made her inwardly smile. You always know how to make me happy. I know you. The rest is easy. While Miwa was debating the merits of using Hisoka as a punching bag for her friends, Hisoka had been using that opportunity to slyly taunt Gon and Killua. Hisoka ended it by saying, "You've already progressed so far in so little time. Are you prepared to fight on this floor?" "We'll be fine," Killua sharply cut in. "Get out of our way." "Yeah," Gon echoed. We gotta register. Hisoka coyly laughed, waving his hands in a mocking gesture of surrender before turning and heading away. Gon stuck his tongue out at his retreating back while Killua followed suit. What a creep, Killua muttered crossly. Come on, let's register. The trio of friends made their way down the hall to where another employee was waiting for them at a registration desk. She had a bubbly smile that was absolutely fake as she greeted them. Welcome to the 200th floor. Please fill out these forms. Miwa groaned in annoyance while Killua accepted hers. It barely took the trio for more than a few minutes to fill out the first forms. The employee asked, "Would you like to register for a match now?" This level uses a self-service system by which you're permitted 90 days of preparation. You may choose to fight on any day during that time. Of course, you're free to fight every day, and you can also wait until the very last minute. Once you've participated in a fight, you have another 90 days to prepare. However, if you don't fight before those 90 days end, you will be disqualified and your name will be struck from all records. Gon immediately asked, "Does that mean we'll be fighting here multiple times?" Yep. You need 10 wins to clear this floor. However, if you lose 4 times before 10 wins, you'll be disqualified. If you win 10 times, you have a chance to challenge the floor masters. The floor masters are the 21 strongest fighters here. Each gets one whole floor from 230 to 250. Understand now? If you defeat a floor master, you can become the new master of that floor. And not only that, but as a floor master you earn the right to participate in the Battle Olympia, the biennial festival of combat. The employees seemed to be rather distressed that none of the children reacted with the slightest bit of interest to her information splurge. Killua idly asked, "Is there anything special about the top floor? That's what you want to know?" The champion of the Battle Olympia gets to live on the top floor. It's an incredible honor. A penthouse 1,000 meters up, don't you get it now? But Killua, your house is 3,700 meters up, right? Gon turned to Killua, ignoring the employee. As if struck by lightning, the employee fell to the floor. She struggled to get back up, whimpering, "And the companion always receives a prize of." "What do you guys want to do?" Killua asked Gon and Miwa. "Now that I know the top floor's secret, I don't care anymore. I just want to fight Hisoka," Gon said. "I just want to kill Hisoka," Miwa said. Gon elbowed her. "Hey, I won't kill him unless you say I can," Miwa promised. "Or unless he's about to kill you. Then I will absolutely murder him." "Well," Killua said pensively, "if Gon wants to fight Hisoka, he'll need to win a fight first." "But you're gonna wait a bit first, right?" "Nope," Gon confidently declared. "I have to find out how different these opponents are." "Finish filling out these forms then," the employee sourly muttered, slamming more papers on her desk. Gon let out a cheerful affirmation as he began to do exactly that. While he worked, 3 adults approached them from behind. They all looked like one good futon attack would blow them into the next city. One of them was in an industrial wheelchair, another on a single peg leg, and the third one reminded Miwa of a snake. Miwa instantly hated the third one. Killua dryly addressed them, "Do you need something from us?" The wheelchair one said, "No, not really." Snake Boy added, "We're simply in line to register for a fight, right?" For some reason they then proceeded to giggle. Not the cute little giggle children did, but the kind of giggle that a stalker might do when watching the object of their fascination. It was creepy, disgusting, and Miwa looked at them like they were bugs under her shoe. Killua sighed. "Right. Gon, these guys want to fight on the same day you do." Gon glanced back, looked the giggling adult men up and down, then proceeded to finish filling out his paper. "I'm ready to go whenever." Gon turned in his paperwork and the employee said, "Gon will be in room 2207, Miwa will be in room 2216, and Killua will be in 2223. We will let you know which day your match is." With that, the friends headed off to Gon's room first. "We're allowed to kill our opponents now, right?" Miwa irritably asked when they were out of earshot of those creepers. "Are all adults in this world creepers?" "Starting to feel like that." "Yeah," Killua said. "That's no fun, though," Gon said, unabashed by Miwa's bloodlust. He reached over and tugged on her pigtail. "This is supposed to be fun, Miwa." "Is killing fun?" "Sometimes," Miwa answered with a shrug. Gon's face twisted up in thought as he considered what to say in response to that. He apparently couldn't think of anything, so he shrugged and said, "Okay." Killua scratched his cheek, watching the exchange with a slight frown. "It's not normal to kill people, though, right?" "Define normal," Miwa asked. "I don't think anyone did it where I grew up," Gon admitted, "and I know some people might get upset about it." "Wouldn't you?" Killua questioned Gon, staring directly at him. "Upset seems like a strong word," Gon answered, tilting his head. Maybe, a little annoyed? If you kill someone, you can't fight them again. That's the point," Miwa said. "If you let them go, they could come back stronger." "Yeah, that's what I want." Gon nodded firmly. "To get stronger you have to fight stronger people, right? Hisoka made me realize that when I hunted him in the third phase. He actually helped me out, which is why I really want to beat him." "Are you a masochist?" Miwa deadpanned. "Huh?" Gon blinked. "What's that?" Killua loudly sighed. "Neither of you are anywhere close to normal, why did I even ask?" "I think I'm pretty normal," Miwa defended herself. "If someone is a threat, you take them out. But if you leave them alone, they could become a super threat and then you could get a super battle," Gon argued. "That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. That's exactly what I want." The two friends stared intently at each other for several seconds, then both shrugged. "I respect your masochism," Miwa said cheekily. "I respect your dullness," Gon returned cheerfully. "I'm going to bed," Killua sighed, 100% done with that conversation. Chapter 15, Lioness 4. Gon's match was scheduled first thing in the morning the following day. It was with the man who only had a single peg leg, wrapped entirely in a red cloak from torso to head, and wore a breathing mask. Frankly, he looked like someone who should be on disability, not fighting in an arena. Miwa had to give him props for doing what he was doing, but he was also a disturbing man who giggled at the thought of fighting a small boy. The arena fought on the 200th floor was certainly more respectable than the dingy arenas they had previously battled in. It was a wide space with thick white cement tiles and had dozens of spotlights shining down on it. It was positively packed with an audience surrounding it who jeered and cheered before the match even began. Killua and Miwa purchased tickets to watch the match. Their seats were somewhere in the middle. The two friends quietly talked about how good their breakfast was that morning as they waited for Gon's match to start. Then it began and, well, it was uncomfortable to watch, but not unbearable. Jaido had no murderous intent behind his actions. Oh, he talked a big game and there was a certain level of sadistic pleasure behind his actions, but there was no desire to kill Gon. It reminded Miwa more of a one-sided sparring match between a Chunin and a Genin. There were some more veteran soldiers who brutally beat down Genin under the guise of training. What made it acceptable was that it always turned out for the better. Either the Genin would realize they couldn't handle such a lifestyle anymore and dropped out, or they recovered, learned from their mistakes, and came back with a vengeance. Training in Konoha was meant to be brutal. If it was lax, then it was considered lazy and the Genin would pay the consequences for it. At least that's what Kurama told her. Miwa didn't like seeing Gon get beat around, and judging the minor leak of killing intent oozing from Killua beside her, he didn't like it either. Unfortunately, if Miwa wanted Gon to become strong enough to defend himself, training was necessary. These types of sparring matches would be necessary. It was better to be done by Jaido in this environment than some random scum, or worse, Hisoka. Jaido would not kill Gon, and there was a referee overseeing the match. Logically, Miwa could accept this. Emotionally, Miwa still wanted to rip his head off. All she could do was sit and watch. And if she started to spike in killing intent, she suddenly found that Killua put a tiny little pine-scented candle under her nose and gave her a cheeky grin. "You're a brat," she told him, sniffing the candle. "Yep," he said proudly. Gon lost. It wasn't an entirely one-sided match, but Jaido's use of Nen gave him a clear advantage over Gon. To be frank, even though Gon had only recently begun his spiritual training in Nen and Chakra, he did very well. He only broke 3 ribs, and his right radius and ulna came out better than you did when you first started training with my chakra, Kurama jeered, which was impressive, and Miwa's opinion of Gon went up a notch. Instead of being a defenseless kitten, he was now a mildly defenseless kitten. Miwa estimated his recovery time would be a month, although the doctors who examined him after the match insisted on 4 months. Given Gon's level of energy and the feel of it, Miwa figured Gon was the type to be a quick healer. After the match's conclusion, Gon was whisked away to the nursery, then chucked back into his bedroom where Killua and Miwa waited for him to wake up. They only had to wait an hour before their friend was sheepishly rubbing the back of his head and grinning at them. So, that didn't go as planned. You really shouldn't have fought him so soon, idiot, Killua scolded. Still, I thought it would be okay. I took a few hits, but I wasn't in mortal danger as long as he didn't hit my vital spots. That greatly irritated Killua, who shifted his position from sitting on Gon's bed to now digging his heel in Gon's broken arm, which was slung in a cast. The pain was so great Gon paled and squirmed under Killua's digging, but his stubbornness refused him to let out so much as a peep or cry of pain. Another point for Gon being an M. Stop it. Only when there was a knock at Gon's door did Killua relent in his torment. Miwa hopped out of Gon's bed. She had been sitting beside him since he was brought in and opened the door to greet Wing. Hello, Wing said, nodding a greeting to Miwa. Hello, Miwa returned, opening the door further to allow Wing to enter the room. Are you here to talk about Gon's match? Yes. I noticed he tried to use Nen during it despite not being trained in it. Miwa had noticed his use of energy during the match, but he hadn't done anything to endanger himself while doing it, so she didn't care too much about it. Incorrectly training in chakra would result in some painful lessons, but they were lessons any genin would learn. She saw nothing wrong with Gon trying to experiment. If it blew up in his face, then it blew up in his face. Judging from Wing's somber expression, Miwa guessed that Wing was very much against having Gon experiment with none. She was correct. He proceeded to give a half-hour lecture to Gon that Miwa honestly couldn't help but tune out on. She only snapped out of her daydreams when Wing called out to her to tell her goodbye. Miwa blinked vapidly upon his departure, turning back to Killua and Gon. What? Were you listening at all? Killua asked her. No. I lost interest. He made us promise not to do anything past the first stages of Nen training, Gon sighed dramatically. That's boring. 1 month later. Killua and Miwa sat beside one another on Miwa's bed. Miwa was reading a chapter out loud from some random adventure book Killua picked out for her. Her pronunciations had drastically improved under his tutelage. There were still some things she stumbled upon, certain characters in their odd alphabet she didn't see very often, but she had graduated up to an elementary schooler's knowledge. When Miwa wasn't studying, she had spent her time restocking her essential supplies and setting up her Horatian network. Her ignorance of the world would only hinder her, and she needed to establish safe zones to teleport to should a powerful opponent appear before them. Every morning for the past month she sent out hundreds of shadow clones that would scour the nearby environment in secret. Another few hundred would teleport to the further Horatian markers she had placed and begin placing more at further distances. She had half the continent covered within the month. While her clones worked on that, Miwa stole essentials. Primarily a lot of ink jars so she could be fully stocked up on chakra ink and start working on some of her weaponized Fuinjutsu scrolls, a process Killua gleefully watched with rapt attention. Gon definitely wanted to learn Fuinjutsu, like Killua, but one look at the amount of studying needed to go into it made him do a hard pass. Suddenly Gon threw open the door to Miwa's room, a sparkle in his dark almond eyes. I'm all better now. See? See? To prove that he had healed all of his bones he proceeded to cartwheel around Miwa's room. How the hell are you already healed? What are you made of? I don't know how to answer that. You're weird, Killua muttered. The remark made Gon puff out his cheeks and stick his tongue out at him. Ah, but since you're here. Killua shifted in Miwa's bed, rummaging through his pockets until he pulled out 2 tickets. I got tickets to Hisoka's next match. Are we all gonna go? No, Miwa answered. Miwa's being a stick in the mud, Killua dismissed, hopping off the bed to give Gon one of the tickets. Why would I care to watch some pathetic clown beat up a stinky maggot, she retorted. Besides, didn't you two ask me to finish making the rainbow explosive tags? Gon and Killua perked up at the mention of the tags. Are you gonna finish it soon? Gon chirped, hopping up and down in excitement. Yes. I need the ink to finish drying before I add the 7th layer, Miwa said, nodding to several dozens of tags scattered out on her room floor to dry. Making explosive tags normally didn't take too long, but making explosive tags that only worked for certain people did. Especially ones designed that if picked up by anyone else they would immediately self-detonate. And Gon and Killua asked her if they could explode in specific colors. Gon wanted a rainbow. Killua wanted blue. Such specifications took time. Time Miwa would gladly devote to making those tags rather than watching a dull fight. Even Kurama had more fun designing different Fuinjutsu arrays than watching two low-leveled thugs fight each other. "I'm gonna blow up everything," Gon whispered. "Why can't he be my vessel?" Kurama whined. Rude. Miwa's gaze roamed over to the two wallet-sized boxes that rested on the nightstand beside the bed. If the tags she had created for Killua and Gon were a success, then she would turn those boxes into Fuinjutsu imprints. Whatever parchment Killua and Gon would place inside of them, after a day they would all become those explosive tags. Miwa planned on storing so much chakra ink inside of it, Gon and Killua would never need to ask her for a refill, which was why she had to steal a few tons of ink, all of which were neatly stored in a storage scroll the size of her pinky. Life without Fuinjutsu is something I don't want to think about. Hey, Gon giggled to himself. He reached forward to take one of the tickets Killua offered out to him, but then pulled his hand back with a wince. "Actually, I can't go. Wing told me not to, remember?" "He doesn't have to know," Killua pointed out. "I promised him." "I can't break a promise." "Ugh. Never mind. He's one of those." Killua rolled his eyes. "Whatever. You both suck." Miwa and Gon stuck their tongues out at Killua. 3 days later. Gon and Killua had been advised to resume their proper nin training after their month-long practice on the first stage. That also meant they were back to practicing the leaf exercise, much to their dismay. Hisoka's match had been interesting according to Killua, but Miwa genuinely didn't care enough to watch the recording of it. Unless he started blowing up buildings with a wave of a finger, he was just a gnat buzzing around her. She had promised Gon not to kill Hisoka since Gon wanted a proper match against him, so she was concerned if got too annoyed with Hisoka that she'd break that promise and accidentally skin him alive or something. Accidentally. On that morning, Killua, Gon, Miwa, and Zushi were walking to Gon's room to continue training their nin. Well, Miwa was going to keep working on creating Fuinjutsu arrays. When they stepped off the 200th floor, they were greeted by those creepy adults, Wheelchair, Pegleg, and Snakefucker. They started doing that gross giggle that made Miwa want to gouge out their throats. Killua put his hands in his pockets, his tone laced with irritation as he said, "You guys don't know when to quit. This is no way to make friends." "Oh, now. Tell us when you're going to fight, because I'd love to be your opponent," drawled out the snake-like man. His voice was saccharine soft. "I guess they specialize in hunting newbies. They want to rack up wins by beating us up," Killua sighed. "We're getting desperate because our deadline is nearing." "Come on, let's fight," the snake man insisted, his tone taking a whiny pitch to it. "I'll even demonstrate my power here for you." "I'm fighting on June 10th, Gon answered firmly. "That won't work. My deadline is May 29th to fight on that day." "Who cares about your deadline, moron?" Killua snapped. "Let's go." Killua grabbed Miwa's hand, giving her a look when he noticed she had pulled out a senbon. "Damn it, Miwa." Miwa innocently started to whistle and look away while Gon grabbed her other hand and pulled out the other hidden senbon needle. "Miwa!" She only whistled louder. Although thanks to her hearing she didn't miss the snake fucker giggling to his friends as he said, "I'll make him fight me." When it came close to dinner time they decided to break for training. Zushi bade them all good night and headed off. Normally Miwa wouldn't have given it much else thought about Zushi's departure. But when Zushi left, Killua left too. And not in a good mood. It was the same mood he was in back on the airship when he killed those two idiots. He better clean up after himself, Miwa thought, staring at the door where they had left. Gon went to go take a bath, so it was only Miwa in the room. "He probably won't," Kurama said with a yawn. Miwa chewed on the insides of her cheeks for a moment before she put down her ink brush and decided to follow behind him. She didn't want him to think she was stalking him, so she refrained from just teleporting directly to him. Instead, she followed his scent out of the tower, onto the streets, and down an alleyway until... Miwa was surprised to find that Killua was carrying an unconscious Zushi on his back. She watched the two of them from a nearby rooftop, curious as to what had happened. She could tell Killua was still irritated, but she couldn't smell any blood. Did Zushi collapse from exhaustion? He didn't look too tired when he left, Miwa scratched her cheek as she thought. But I guess he is still a child. Miwa watched them for a few more minutes before she shrugged to herself and headed back to her room for dinner. If Killua wanted her to know, he'd tell her. Although she found it odd that the very next day both boys had apparently signed up for a match against those weird freaks. Despite the fact that both boys agreed not to fight again until they had advanced to the next step of Nen and Chakra training. Gon had told her offhandedly that morning, and Killua had told her in the afternoon while the two were watching a movie in her room. Both you and Gon? I guess I better sign up or something now, Miwa muttered. As soon as Miwa had mentioned Gon had a match as well, he reacted. Had Miwa not been an exceptional kunoichi, she would have missed the subtle tightening in Killua's posture. His burst of killing intent was rapidly repressed, but still present enough that a trained assassin could feel it. Miwa raised an eyebrow at him, now more curious to what was going on. Killua? Who? Killua asked her, his voice low. Who is he fighting? That creepy snake dude. Killua abruptly pushed Miwa's legs off his lap. She had been lounging on him and the couch while they watched the movie, then left the room. What? What? Miwa immediately hopped off the couch. She ran her fingers through her loose hair as she stepped out in the hallway. She had been lounging in a cute little nightdress she stole. It was a girlish pink with kitty cats on it, so she smoothed out the wrinkles on it. She wasn't wearing any slippers or socks. She was barefoot out in the hallway as she looked around for Killua. What the heck is going on? She sniffed him out and felt his chakra down another hallway. Using her enhanced hearing, she could hear someone talking down that hallway. Most of the contestants had an entire hallway to themselves. She couldn't hear Killua's footsteps, but judging from his chakra, he was going closer to the voice. As Miwa neared, she could discern the words said and recognized the voice belonging to that creepy snake-like man. In a week I'll beat little Killua for my 6th win. The next day I'll beat little Gon for my 7th win. Then I'll pressure Miwa for my 8th win. I'll only need to find 2 more suckers, Hihei, and I'll be a floor master. I'll get all the money and fame to set me up for the rest of my life. Killua's chakra had arrived right on top of that wretched thing's own energy. Killua's voice was softer than a lullaby, and more poisonous than nightshade. It was the first time Miwa had heard Killua speak in such a manner, and it made her heart skip a beat. Move, and you die, Killua whispered in that maliciously sweet voice. Use Nen, and you die. Make a sound, and you die. If you understand, slowly close your eyes. Miwa had completely suppressed her presence and chakra as she neared the room where the two were in. She peered in to find Killua had a knife pointing down at the snake's head while the cretin sat at a vanity desk. Do you see what happens when you break a promise? Killua went on. If you know, slowly open your eyes. Look at me in the mirror, and listen carefully. Don't ever show your dirty face in front of us again. That's a promise. When Miwa felt Killua's presence begin to move out the room, she reflexively used her Haration to teleport back to her room, hopped onto the couch and pretend like she didn't hear what she heard. Killua returned to her room a few minutes later, promptly sat on the couch and put his legs in her lap, and pressed resume on the movie like he hadn't just gone and threatened someone. Well, this simply won't do. Apparently, that snake fella did something to Killua. Broke a promise and bothered him that much. He really shouldn't have let him live, Kurama said disapprovingly. I agree. Let's remedy that. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to asterisk. Miwa excused herself for a bathroom break during the commercial. It barely took her a minute to track down the irritating cretin. Despite the fact that he was in broad public, fleeing, she guessed, she snatched him in between one heartbeat and the next and plopped him on a rooftop. He didn't even have time to process the fact that he had been kidnapped before she chopped off his head, placed it in a spare box she had been using, then teleported back to her room where Killua was making popcorn. Killua was surprised by her use of teleportation, but then he saw the box and... Miwa, what's in the box? He dubiously asked her. Miwa held up the head, causing Killua to frown. Why'd you go and do that? I let him go. Why? Miwa tilted her head. Didn't he break a promise to you? Didn't he upset you? Why would I let him live? Killua blinked in surprise at that, apparently taken aback by her response. Me? You were worried about me? Of course, she said as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. We're friends. I don't know what exactly is going on, but you were unhappy and I heard you threatened him, so clearly he did something. Whoa, he said. What? It's just, no one's ever killed for me before, he explained, then he rubbed the back of his head, grinning sheepishly. Kind of cool. Miwa's cheeks turned pink. Oh, Killua grabbed the severed head by the hair, giving it a once-over glance, then he grinned wickedly at her. Wanna cut it in half and put it in those other freaks' beds? Hell yeah! Chapter 16, Lioness v. Things were dull at the tower for Miwa. She was obligated to participate in one fight to stay in the tower. Unfortunately, when she signed up, Hisoka caught wind of it and decided he wanted to fight her, so Miwa stood in the pristine arena, idly twirling one of her pigtails while Hisoka smiled at her from across the arena. Gon and Killua were in the stands, Gon enviously watching on. The crowds of people were chanting something, likely cheering for Hisoka. Miwa couldn't pick out their individual words. After Miwa had murdered the pale creepy man, Gon and Killua merrily continued with their training to prepare to fight the remaining duo of the creepy trio. Miwa admitted it was funny to see the creepers' faces upon finding out half of their friend's decapitated head was in their beds, but that humor was short-lived when police got involved. Not that they could find any proof of anything happening. Oddly enough, the investigation was only open for a day before they shoved it aside. Killua guessed the police weren't allowed to look too closely about what happened in the tower. I've been looking forward to this since the exams, Hisoka commented. You and Gon have caught my attention. Miwa murmured, unimpressed. It's a little discouraging to be ignored, he said, his tone teasing and flirt. Miwa's face twinged in disgust. Were you about to flirt with me? Hisoka's smile was a million times more disturbing. Ugh, hi. The referee cleared his throat. Ready. Start. Neither moved. Gon wants to fight him. I shouldn't hurt too bad, Miwa thought, goosebumps crawling up and down her arms as she watched him gaze at her with those bloodlust-filled eyes. I hate fighting masochists. So gross. Really, the only way she could defeat him while minimizing damages to him would be to use a sedative to knock him out or render him unconscious with one hit. She really didn't want to directly touch him. Thankfully, genjutsus were a thing. And shadow clones. She spawned 30 clones in the arena. What's this? There's now 30 Miwas in the arena, the announcer's shrill voice drowned out the crowd's surprise. How is this possible? The clones began to engage in a light bout of taijutsu against Hisoka while Miwa began to apply a multi-layered genjutsu over the jester. She had to reluctantly admit that Hisoka was decent at hand-to-hand combat. Despite facing 30 of her clones, he had managed to evade all of their attacks. Granted, none of them were using Kurama's chakra, or any ninjutsu, but it was still impressive given the incredibly low bar Miwa previously set for him. The genjutsu applied shortly afterward and Hisoka froze in place for a solid 10 seconds. Plenty of time for Miwa to throw a paralysis tag on him that immediately took effect. The genjutsu was cancelled, but Hisoka could no longer move due to the Fuinjutsu tag on his forehead. One of Miwa's clones took that opportunity to swiftly knock him out in one clean hit. Knockout! Victory to Miwa, called the referee. Oh. Who would have seen this coming? Hisoka is now at 9 wins and 3 losses, with Miwa taking her first win. What a powerhouse we have! An overwhelming victory for Miwa. Miwa turned on her heel and left. Her friends were waiting for her in the public area outside the arena. Gon pulled on Miwa's arm, spinning her around as he whined, Teach me, teach me, teach me. I already am, Miwa laughed, easily lifting Gon up with one arm and tossing him in the air. Gon grinned joyously as he landed beside her. You and Killua have the leaf exercise down, why don't you two try walking vertically now? Killua frowned. Now. Not right here, Miwa said, acknowledging that they were in the middle of the tower and there was a bustle of people around them. Let's go to a park, start with walking up trees. Don't push yourselves too much since you both have matches with the rest of those freaks. Woohoo, tree walking! Gon called out, dashing away. Beat you there, Killua. Hey! You got a head start, you cheater, Killua called out, breaking out into a sprint to catch up. Gon and Killua won their next 2 matches against the surviving duo. It was completely one-sided, neither boy having any bit of difficulty. Wing, impressed by their victories and their training, decided it was time for them to move on to the next stage of nin training. After a day of training in the park, the trio met up with Zushi at Wing's home where Wing began his next lecture on Nen. We'll begin our study of Hatsu today. Once you master Hatsu, you will have mastered all the basics of Nen. After that, you will need to work on developing your individual Nen style. Hatsu is the technique by which you control your aura, or as we have learned, your physical energy. In other words, it is the culmination of Nen abilities, and there are 6 distinct categories. Wing wrote them out on the chalkboard behind him. Enhancer, enhancers strengthen and reinforce natural abilities. Emitter, emitters propel aura. Transmuter, transmuters change the quality of aura. Conjurer, conjurers materialize objects out of aura. Manipulator, manipulators control objects or things with aura. Specialists, those with a unique and distinct aura that doesn't fall within the other 5 classes. Wing went on, it's important to find an ability that suits you. Nen abilities are highly personal, with 2 areas of particular prominence. The first would be your inborn potential. The second would be your potential refined later in life. For example, Gon was born with flexible and springy muscles. His acute senses were honed by the result of a childhood spent in nature. From the moment of birth, your Nen abilities fall within one of the 6 categories. While rare, it is possible for your Nen aura to later change types. If you attempt to learn an ability that does not fit the nature of your aura, you will have a hard time. I'm sure both of you have already struggled a lot with learning chakra, yes? Chakra is so much harder to use than Nen, Gon vehemently agreed. Wing smiled as he drew a hexagon connecting each of the points he had previously written down. This shows the compatibility rate of other auras to learn compared to your own. The closer one is, the easier it will be to learn. If you are born with an aura of the enhancer category, you will find enhancer abilities easiest to learn and master. And adjacent transmuter and emitter classes will also be easy to learn. On the other hand, the specialist class, which is the furthest away, would be very difficult for an enhancer to train. Killua shifted his weight where he stood. Is there a way to find out which category your aura falls into? Wing smiled patiently. There is. I have already prepared the test. Follow me over to the kitchen table. The children did as asked. They gathered in a circle around a small wooden table. At the center was a glass of water filled to the brim with a floating leaf on top. It looked like, if so much as a drop of water was added to it, it would overflow. Oh, no more leaves, Gon sighed. Water divination, a Shinjin-Ryu screening tool for classifying your aura. It is also used in training Hatsu, Wing said, ignoring Gon's complaint. Place your hands around the glass and perform run. Your ability is revealed by what happens. Wing placed his hands on either side of the glass, conjuring his aura to wrap around it. The water began to multiply, spilling over the glass. He explained, if the volume of water changes, that means you're an enhancer. This shows that my aura falls within the enhancer class. Okay, now it's your turn. One by one they tried. Gon, enhancer, water overflowed. Zushi, manipulator, leaf twitched. Killua, transmuter, water turned sweet. Miwa, if you're able to, I'd be curious to see what your physical energy would do to it, Wing kindly probed. I'm not very good at separating my physical and spiritual energy, Miwa thought to herself, her brow furrowing as she slowly pulled her spiritual energy back from her chakra. Kurama must have been interested in the results as well, because he pulled out his own chakra from the mixture in order to provide Miwa with a clean sample. The water darkened to a scarlet red, thickening as the stench of blood began to fill the room. The entire cup of water was overflowing with old, sludgy blood. The kind of blood that oozed out of corpses several days old. Miwa immediately pulled away from it, wincing at the mess she had made and the stench. A specialist, Wing observed. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. It would be fascinating to see how your Nen develops. I hope you'll continue training it. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to learn something new, Miwa allowed after a moment. Might be more fun to fight people with only Nen. More of a challenge at least. Over the next month you should practice water divination until your results are significantly more noticeable, Wing advised all of them. Good luck. Luck obviously had nothing to do with training. Killua and Gon had already proven themselves eager and talented students. But it was a nice sentiment, and the 4 children let out an enthusiastic yeah. 1 month later. Training went as well as expected. Killua and Gon showed tremendous results by the end of the month, while Miwa had become stagnant. She couldn't pull out her spiritual energy without Kurama's assistance, and it embarrassed her. Wing told her that her initial result was impressive enough to pass his test for her, but encouraged her to keep trying to improve. Unfortunately for Zushi, his own training had borne nothing. Killua, Gon, and Miwa had officially completed the basics of training Nen. There was only one thing left to do at Heaven's Arena for the three friends: Gon's fight with Hisoka. Gon had already picked the time and date. All Killua and Miwa had to do was show up and watch. It was one of the more sought-after fights. Gon's popularity had taken a step up since he won his last few battles, while Hisoka was only one victory away from challenging a floormaster. The tickets to see the match were considerably more expensive than any previous match the trio had watched. Unsurprisingly, the arena was jam-packed the day of the fight. There was good circulation, so it didn't reek of stagnant body odor, but it still made Miwa uncomfortable. The fight opened up with an eruption of flying fists, quick jumps, and nimble dodges. It was decidedly in Hisoka's favor. Gon simply lacked the experience to fight evenly with him. When Gon realized he couldn't keep up the attacks forever, he jumped back. He picked up a slab of concrete and shattered it with enough force the debris went flying to Hisoka. Hisoka stood his ground, chopping and smashing any of the pieces that flew at him. His arrogance refused to let him move a single step, so Gon took that opportunity to hide amongst the debris before coming out with a surprise attack. Gon delivered a solid punch on Hisoka. The jester was blown back several paces, surprise flickering on his face by Gon's impressive punch. Then both parties relaxed. Gon pulled out a badge and walked over to Hisoka, where Hisoka accepted it. Weird. Nothing that kid does surprises me anymore. How much of the basics of Nen have you learned? Hisoka asked, his voice a low sultry. All of the basics, Gon muttered. I see, you must be an enhancer, Hisoka said, pointing a finger at Gon. Miwa had to squint, but she thought he saw that pink Nen that Hisoka had shot out from his finger and latch onto Gon. She was sitting too far away to see. Each time she blinked it seemed like it kept disappearing and reappearing. How did you know? Gon asked, dropping his guard in surprise. Hisoka chuckled. You're so adorable. You should do a better job of keeping a secret. Shut up. How did you know? It's my personality analysis based on aura type, Hisoka explained. Although it's not an exact science, it's much like personality profiles based on blood type. Enhancers are simple and determined. He's right. Hisoka gestured toward himself. By the way, I'm a transmuter. Whimsical and dishonest. Miwa looked over at Killua, the transmuter assassin, who looked away from her gaze and coughed. He's right again. Emitters are short-tempered. Specialists are independent. Conjurers are high-strung. Manipulators are argumentative. You would be a manipulator, Kurama. How dare you? I would be a specialist. Their conversation was over. The fight picked back up, but it was noticeably more in Hisoka's favor. The referee ended up rapidly calling points in a blatant attempt to end the match quickly. Within 5 minutes Hisoka had won by accumulating more points than Gon. A fact that made Gon puff out his cheeks in annoyance like a chipmunk. With that match concluded, the three of them had reached an end to their stay at Heaven's Arena. Gon mentioned going back to his home island to tell his adopted mother about his adventures, and he cheerfully invited Miwa and Killua to join him. As if Miwa and Killua weren't already going to follow him anyways. Chapter 17, Wolf Spider Eye. Greed Island. That was the trio's current objective. They had taken a nice vacation at Gon's home island. While there, Gon's aunt had given them something left behind by Gon's father, Jing. One thing led to another, and now they had to hunt down a game made by Hunters for Hunters called Greed Island. Jing had challenged Gon to find him, and the first clue was on that island. That was interesting, certainly, but it wasn't what weighed on Miwa's mind as the trio journeyed to Yorknew City. No. Meteor City nagged at Miwa. While Gon went to pick up groceries at his aunt's request, Miwa and Killua stayed behind. Miwa had taken the opportunity to peruse through their books as a test to see what she could read. Miwa flipped through a geography book, pleased with herself that she could pick out a few words. She tried to pronounce some major countries out loud. Killua had to correct her several times. There was one passage that caught her attention, though. Mostly due to how short it was. All the previous chapters were walls of text and pictures. The one Miwa currently stared at was barely a paragraph long and only had a dot on the map to show where it was. Meteor City? Miwa guessed, squinting hard at the name. First try, good job, Killua praised. It's so small, Miwa squinted at it. The actual area is pretty big, but it's not worth traveling to, so it's only marked as a dot. All that wasteland surrounding it is part of it. It's a junkyard city inhabited by outcasts, Killua explained to her. Outcasts? Unwanted. Miwa gripped at the book, a faint bitter memory pulling at her mind. She couldn't explain what bothered her about Meteor City. Only that it was stuck in her head all the way to Yorknew. The game was retailing at 8.9 billion jennies and a few copies would be sold at an underground auction house. They were able to learn that much information from Killua's family and the Hunter exclusive website. Killua's brother had to give them a secret URL for a Hunter website in exchange for the Greed Island memory card Jing had left behind for Gon. The website was essentially a wealth of information, in exchange for money, of course. They learned that the game could only be played by Nen users, and when and where the auction for it was, as well as the starting pricing now. 8.9 million is way too much, Killua bemoaned when they closed out of the website. It's a waste of time to try and scrounge up money, Miwa muttered. I can just steal the thing. Gon groaned, leaning back in the chair. Are you crazy? That whole place is run by several mafias. Even my dad wouldn't try to steal from them, Killua said. Can your dad destroy a mountain with a finger? You're strong, not immortal, Killua said with a roll of his eyes. It's not about strength, it's about angering the wrong crowd. Make too many enemies and life becomes an annoyance. People constantly coming after you to kill you. Miwa could see that. Okay. Fair point. Then I'll just steal the game and I won't get caught. Killua facepalmed while Gon puffed up his cheeks. There's gotta be a way, Gon declared. I'm sure we could find enough money to buy it. Good luck with that, Miwa dismissed. We could find some treasures and auction them off. Miwa didn't see the point in that at all. I'd rather use this time to survey the city and learn about the auction. Okay, Gon agreed before Killua could start to lecture her again. Killua and I will try to make up the money. Gon and Killua set off to start finding a way to make money while Miwa decided to learn the city layout. She assessed the building where the auction house was taking place, being sure to leave her Horatian marks at the roof and around it, then surveyed the surrounding area. Her stomach growled around noon, telling her to take a break and eat. As she was assessing one of the nearby shops to decide on a place to eat, she picked up a familiar scent. She followed it until she found Kurapika. His nin was stronger than at the exams, but he's colder, Miwa realized. There was a distance in his gray eyes that made Miwa uncomfortable. It reminded her of. He was small, tiny, and broken. Young, but forced to be old. It was one of those rare moments when they just couldn't take it anymore and he was crouching in front of her as silent tears of rage slipped out of dark eyes. It was a moment of weakness, and the self-hatred on his face for it hurt her more than any punch could have. She held him, her own small arms not yet big enough, not yet strong enough to support him. Blood, tears, and misery awaited him if she couldn't stop the pain now. He was getting colder, and she didn't know what to do. Miwa hadn't meant to, but she had reached forward and hugged Kurapika tightly around the waist. He was bigger than her, and she had used her quick speed to reach him, so he was caught off guard by her presence. Miwa? Kurapika carefully asked. Hello. Miwa pulled away, embarrassed by her lack of control. Sorry. Hi. It's nice to see you again. Likewise. Kurapika offered a polite smile. Are you here with Gon? He and Killua are off hunting for money, Miwa explained. What are you here? Lunch break for now, said Kurapika. Wanna eat together? Miwa asked. I'll pay. Sure. Thank you. Great. Can you read the menu for me? Sure. Miwa and Kurapika headed inside the nearest food shop, which happened to be a small local eatery. They took a seat at one of the tables in the corner. The bubbly waitress handed them a menu each and Miwa stared at the words. She could probably sound out a few of them, but it looked like the place had come up with some bizarre food names. She felt her cheeks turn red from her dilemma. She only recognized one of the foods being burger. She mumbled a soft sorry as she placed her menu down on the table. Kurapika watched her for a moment, surprise flickering over his face. Can't read? I'm still learning the language here, Miwa shyly admitted. Killua and Gon have been teaching me, but it's still a process. To Miwa's own surprise, Kurapika's entire demeanor softened at that. He scooted closer to her to show her his menu. He pointed to the first word at the top left and said, "This says Dazzling Deluxe Delight." They've got some odd names for their food here, so it probably seems off-putting. Don't worry about it too much, though. Why don't you try reading the second item? Miwa stared intently at the characters. She chewed on her lip before she hesitantly started to sound them out. D-D-Daff? Dave, Kurapika gently corrected. Dave, Miwa repeated. Dave's dare or dar, Darren, daring? Dave's daring dast, Miwa became increasingly flustered as she stumbled over the odd word. Destiny? Destination. Very close, Kurapika praised her. My, aren't you too cozy? Boyfriend and girlfriend, asked the waitress when she came back with their waters. No, Miwa answered, looking over at the unfazed Kurapika. She hadn't given him much thought other than he was Gon's friend and he had some kind of tragic backstory. The waitress giggled an apology before taking her leave. If he was a girl, he'd have been your type in your past life, Kurama remarked. I liked girls? A little more than boys for a time, Kurama answered. There was a pause, and from his tone Miwa could feel reluctance as he said, You lost the ability to feel attraction at a young age. Attraction. Miwa considered it. Have I felt it before? You can now, at least. Is that a good thing? I hope you do. Falling in love is a stupid human thing, but it's a stupid human thing you never got to do. Okay. I'll properly consider it. It can't be with an idiot. Okay. They can't be stronger than me. Okay. They have to be good to you. Okay. If they try to kill you, we kill them. Okay. They have to say they like foxes more than cats and dogs. Okay. Kurapika gently touched Miwa's shoulder, his gray eyes surprisingly kind. Are you okay? You seemed lost in your thoughts. I've never had a boyfriend or girlfriend before, Miwa told him. I was thinking about it. Kurapika was startled by that. He blinked once, twice, then recovered. Oh. Are you wanting one? I've never fallen in love. I guess I'm obligated to try it at least once before I die. Ah. Good luck with that. Miwa shrugged. Have you? No, Kurapika admitted. It is not something I have considered. Miwa nodded, not surprised. She certainly hadn't given it much thought. Why would anyone else? She had far more important things to focus on, like learning the language, trying new foods, and going on adventures with Killua and Gon. She could worry about that love stuff when she was older. Miwa offered up what she hoped was friendly smile to Kurapika. So, since you're on a lunch break, that means you have a job here? MN. Kurapika didn't look like he wanted to elaborate on his job. What about you? Got plans in Yorknew? I'll be robbing the auction. Kurapika stared at her. What? I'll be robbing the auction, she repeated. Do you want anything? Kurapika could only stare at her in disbelief. You do know who is running the auction? Miwa raised an eyebrow. Yeah. Mafias. And you know how powerful they are? Yeah. What's your point? Did you tell Gon and Killua? Yeah. And they're okay with it? No. Ah. Kurapika stared at her for several more seconds before he cracked a small half-exasperated yet half-amused smile. You're a very odd one, Miwa. I guess. Are you ready to order? Miwa asked him. Yes. Good. Make sure you order something hot to drink, she told him. Kurapika blinked in surprise. Why? Miwa looked at him as if the answer was obvious. To warm you up, of course. Your heart's too cold. You should take better care of it. He gave her another funny look, but he felt a bit warmer than before. Silly boy. The next day she wandered around the marketplace with Gon and Killua. She told him how she had run into Kurapika on his lunch break, eliciting surprise from Gon, and they told her how they ended up wasting a lot of their money hunting for treasures to sell. While going through the outdoor market, Killua mentioned that Gon and Miwa really ought to have a phone by now. Miwa's reading skills had improved enough she could at least unlock the phone and make an emergency call. If they got a phone with text to speak, she'd be in the clear until she properly learned the language. They stopped by a phone stall, and the seller immediately tried to sell the pink one to Miwa. "Don't bother," drawled a familiar voice. The three children turned around to find Rio, in his blue suit and tie, standing behind them. "That feature doesn't work in many countries, and it isn't even waterproof," Rio added. "That model's only good for making phone calls." Rio. Don happily greeted him. "Yo," Rio said with an easy grin. He approached the stand and assessed the phones. "I would recommend this Beetle 07. He picked up a phone that looked like a purple beetle, and Miwa immediately turned her nose up in disgust. "It's a little heavy and pricey, but it translates 200 languages used worldwide," Rio explained. "What? Really? Get this one, I'll get one too," Killua exclaimed. "Hard pass," Miwa deadpanned. "How come?" Gon gasped. "It's not cute," Miwa said flatly. "I have been spoiled by cute things in my life and I refuse to go back." "Cute, huh?" Rio rubbed at his chin. Then how about this one? The Totoro 93? A lot more expensive, but it's about the same as the Beetle 07. The Totoro 93 was shaped like a beloved movie character that Miwa had seen a lot of posters about. It had a bluer tint to it than the character, but it was definitely cute enough to pass. Miwa had a lot more money to burn than the boys since she didn't waste it trying to buy treasures yesterday. "Yes," Miwa agreed. "Okay, 2 new Beetle 07s, and 1 Totoro 93 will come up to 1 million jennies." "Are you crazy?" Rio shouted, and thus began an hour-long haggle where he halved the total price, and drew an impressive round of applause from the audience that had gathered. Miwa was very happy with her new phone. It wasn't furry, one of the requirements to being cute, but it had a cute enough vibe to it. She supposed there could be some things that were cute that didn't have to be fluffy like Kurama. Her entire worldview shifted with that decision. Cute things did not have to be animal exclusive. Cute things did not need to be fluffy. Mind-blowing. Miwa spent the remainder of the day reassessing the world around her and categorizing what could now fit in her cute list trademark. Gon, Killua, Rio, and Miwa headed out of the market to grab some lunch. While they ate, they caught Rio up on what had happened: Heaven's Arena, Nen training, Gon's fight with Hisoka, finding Jing's open taunt to Gon to come find him. Since it was starting to look like it would rain, they headed back to the hotel the trio of children were staying out to drink tea and finish chatting. Rio was aghast by the starting price, but he was with Gon on trying to make money rather than just letting Miwa steal it. But she was going to steal it regardless. The more they told her not to, the more she wanted to do it. At 7 o'clock, Miwa hopped out the window without alerting her friends she was leaving. Then she used her ration to teleport to the top of the building where the underground auction was being held. The auction was being held at an impressive building, and already Miwa could sense a bunch of Nen users inside. None of them had particularly impressive cores, though, so Miwa didn't feel threatened in the slightest bit. Better safe than sorry, Miwa thought. She did a quick henge to look like she was wearing all black ninja clothes with a fox mask on top. Even if someone saw her, they wouldn't think she was a blonde little girl. She wasn't very familiar with the technology used there. Killua had told her a lot about things called security cameras and alarms. Alarms didn't mean much, so what if they knew she was there if they couldn't actually catch her? The cameras were confusing though. Gon had taken a picture of her with a henge on, and it made her very blurry in the photo. She only looked like a blob of darkness, really, but that meant something showed up on camera. Even if they couldn't identify her, Miwa could only do her best to avoid what she saw. There were guards on the rooftop, but she slipped by them with her kunoichi skills. Down the hallway she went. Now to find the treasure, Miwa thought excitedly. She had absolutely no clue where it was, but she had a lot of chakra to summon shadow clones and a solid 4 hours before the event started. Her shadow clones could henge into guards they spotted as need be, too. Even with that major advantage, the hotel was simply that huge that it still took Miwa and her hundreds of clones an hour to find the spot. It was pretty out of the way, but a clone placed a Haration mark nearby it before dispelling so Miwa could transport right to it. Now how do I open this without triggering that alarm thing Killua said all vaults have? Miwa thought to herself. I think I have an idea, Kurama purred. Use my chakra. Your chakra? Technology has always had difficulty dealing with the chaotic energy of my chakra. If you transform my chakra into electricity, I'd bet one of my tails it will cause a malfunction. And that'll make it not work? Yep. Worth a shot. Miwa placed her hands on the door and channeled Kurama's chakra through and around it. It was diluted enough that it wouldn't directly affect the door, but were some sparks flying all around it. The lights in the hallway flickered and the door miraculously opened up. If that hadn't worked, I would have drilled underneath it, Miwa thought. That would have worked, too. Miwa entered the room, surprised to find such an abundance of items. The door shut behind her, the lights flickering back on as things somehow returned to normal. Technology is surprisingly resilient. Better than our old world. Miwa pulled out the first of her dozens of storage scrolls she had stashed in the messenger bag she brought. For every item she stole, she'd leave behind a shadow clone version hinged to look like it so they wouldn't catch on right away. She wanted plenty of time to escape, after all. She did actively try to search for the Game Greed Island with her clones first, though. That was the whole point of her stealing. She didn't really understand what a video game was, but Gon said it was like a smaller movie case. She meticulously went through the pile, adding things and replacing them with cloned versions. I don't see the game. And this is only one room. Now that I think about it, isn't the auction supposed to go on for 10 days? More than likely they only bring a certain amount to the site to be auctioned off, said Kurama. Damn. Guess I'll have to keep coming back if I don't find the game. Maybe you'll get lucky and it's here. We both know I'm not that lucky. Kurama barked out a laugh. One of the shadow clones Miwa had stationed around the hotel popped, informing her and Kurama that the auction was starting. She had several clones hinged as guests inside the main room to watch the auction unfold. On the off chance there was another treasury room that Miwa missed and they auctioned off Greed Island, she wanted to see who bought it so she could kill them and give it to Gon. She had finished putting the real treasures in her storage scrolls already and only had to wait for the door to leave. Still, she wanted to see if anyone could spot her fakes right away. She decided to use her Hiration to teleport just outside the vault. She used a simple genjutsu to make people not notice her. The genjutsu was useless against sensors, or those with superb senses of smell, but for civilians it was fine. No one would hear or see her with it on and she could monitor their reaction to seeing the vault. If someone could spot her shadow clones at a glance, that was important information to have as soon as possible. A clone popped. It had not popped on its own. It had been killed, and its rush of memories startled Miwa. A brief interlude with the clones. It appeared that a very cute boy with dark hair had stepped up onto the stage in front of an extremely large and not cute man. The cute boy with cold eyes flatly addressed the audience with, welcome everyone. The cute boy's face transformed into something dark and cruel that immediately perked Kurama's interest as he watched the clone's memories. Let's forego the formalities. The dark-haired boy covered his ears as the giant mane stretched out hands bigger than Miwa and his fingers literally popped off to reveal a hollowed metal inside. He proceeded to shoot bullets of Nen at the entire audience. The first clone had been in the front row and had no time to react before getting a face full of Nen bullets and popping in a puff of smoke. The second and third clones had reacted well enough to immediately use the other humans as meat shields. The third clone decided to play dead, while the second one chose to wait it out. The third clone was able to successfully escape through the door. There had been a black-haired girl with glasses waiting for it, but the clone was too quick for the girl to notice. It made it all the way outside before popping to inform Miwa about the other girl. The second clone had lost control of its hinge, revealing the true form of Miwa. It hid under the corpses and in the sea of blood. It listened as the black-haired girl entered the room and conjured some kind of monster vacuum. The black-haired girl said to her vacuum, "Suck up all the corpses and their blood, body parts, and personal possessions from the room. Grab the chairs too." The clone had thought to itself, "Holy shit, that's so freaky." With such ease the vacuum began to suck up everything. Even Miwa hadn't perfected her storage scrolls to be able to do it that effortlessly. Blood would still remain in the carpets with Miwa's storage scroll, but not with that girl's vacuum. I need to learn how she does that. The cute boy's soft voice carried in the room as he said, Shizuku's nen ability is always entertaining to watch. Shizuku. The black-haired girl with glasses and vacuum is Shizuku. Shizuku. Oh, mumbled the large man. The vacuum was only mopping up the dead, so the living were left. There was one man they had found alive. Someone's alive, the black-haired boy was amused. Who are you? The dying man questioned as he struggled to even breathe. Doesn't matter. You're all dead. The community will destroy you. Your family. Torture you. Cut you up. You'll taste hell. The man was cut off as the clone witnessed the cute black-haired boy move with speed that Miwa hadn't seen from anyone other than Netero since waking up. He cleanly sliced off the man's head with only one hand and did it with such ease and grace that not a single drop of blood was left on him. The clone of Miwa gasped in amazement, drawing attention to itself. Well, it was the only thing left. A kid, questioned the large man as the black-haired boy turned to coldly glare at her. The clone of Miwa grinned foxily at them, stood up and bowed politely. That was a very impressive performance. Care for an encore? The black-haired boy cruelly asked her with a twisted smile. Sure, the clone said. If I can have your name first. I was taught it was good manners to give the dead your name. Phaeton, he politely returned as he chopped the clone's head off. The clone hadn't made any move to stop him, more interested in obtaining information than preserving its life. It disappeared in a puff smoke, laughing in delight as anger and realization flickered across the cute boy's face. Back with Miwa. While that was happening with the clone, a man had come along and literally put all the clone goods in some kind of dimensional pocket. Shadow clones weren't meant to be held in pocket dimensions, so they immediately dispelled. The man who took the goods didn't appear to be a thief, he was escorted by the guards, so Miwa didn't bother to tail after him. He was super cute, Miwa thought after she finished reviewing all the clone's memories. Absolutely not. What? You told me. No. But. No. Okay. Why would you even think such a sadistic man like that is cute? Because I love you the most and he reminded me of you. Kurama couldn't really argue with that. He had only himself to blame. He was too amazing. It was only right that Miwa compared every potential partner she could have to him, and they would all come up short. Kurama came to a sinking realization that making Miwa's original life's wish of having a family come true would be harder than he anticipated. Miwa watched under her genjutsu as more people showed up at the vault. They killed the guards stationed at the door and blew the door open. They weren't happy at all when they saw it was empty. They must be with those people in the ballroom, Miwa concluded. She decided to tail them. She almost got caught when one of them, a big, burly man with wild hair, hairy arms, and a feral demeanor, sniffed at the vault and muttered, "Reeks of a girl." Oh, shit. Someone with an excellent nose could smell her through the genjutsu. Miwa applied a third layer to genjutsu to deal with that issue. She decided to lay back and give the group heads start just in case they could still smell her through the genjutsu. She counted to 15 minutes, then tracked them down. She followed the group through the building, up to the roof, where a pretty lady with crazy pink hair was waiting for them in a hot air balloon. Miwa watched them board and take off before she leapt onto the basket and used her chakra to sit upside down on it. Wonder where they're going? Miwa asked as she looked up or down. At the city below her. She listened to that burly man make a phone call. No, the vault was empty. According to the auctioneer, the only one who knew the situation, all the items were relocated somewhere else before we arrived. It's as though they expected this to happen. The person on the other phone spoke, but Miwa couldn't hear them over the wind. Don't you find the timing to be perfect? Muttered the grizzled man. We have a Judas among us. Another one spoke, his voice low and smooth. Miwa thought it might have been the guy dressed like a samurai, but she didn't dare poke her head above to confirm. You're saying one of us is a traitor? The person over the phone talked again. No, nobody's like that, sighed the burly man. Silence again. Ha! A pause. That's true. A longer pause. I don't get how this information is traveling. Whatever. So, what do we do? Yeah, we asked the auctioneer where the merchandise went, but he swore he didn't know up until he died. Phaeton tortured him, so he wasn't lying. Phaeton's soft voice was hard to hear over the wind. He had the worst luck of them all today. You bet I did. the big man told the person over the phone. The auction is run by the mafia community heads who lead gangs in each of the 10 districts around the world. They're called the 10 Dons. This is the only time that all 10 gathers in one place to discuss business and issue orders. Their commands are carried out by a special force, the Shadow Beasts. This team consists of each Don's best combatants. That's right, I heard that a single Shadow Beast member turned up at the vault. The 25 square meter safe was packed with items ready to be auctioned off. The Shadow Beast walked in, then walked right back out, empty-handed. But the safe was emptied when the auctioneer looked in. It was a man in sunglasses, calling himself Owl. That must have been that strange man who came by. His Nen didn't feel very special. Certainly, smaller than the people in the balloon. We can take them on, right? The one over the phone must have responded positively because the man started to laugh in wicked delight. Looks like I'm going to have quite the story to tell Gon and Killua, Miwa thought. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.